Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the final round of this year's ASR Supercars Championship for season 2023. We are sprinting to the finish line, quite literally. It is the Adelaide Twin Sprint from the concrete-lined streets of the Adelaide Parkland Circuit in South Australia. Well, this title has been wrapped up a round early. First time in championship history, the driver's title has been decided before the final round commences. So all the attention turns to what is going on in the ultra-tight teams battle, as well as who's going to take the minor placings for the Drivers' Championship in season 2023. Now, let's welcome Benjamin Rhodey Rhodes to the commentary box for the very last time this year. Rhodey, it's a great season. New champion, but it's still not over yet. Still 2 races to go to round out 29 races for the year. Should be a cracker. This place delivers plenty of action.
Yeah, good evening to everybody watching along at home. And yeah, with Will Davis now crowned champion, I think that's our, doing the quick head math right now, I think that's our 5th unique champion in 6 years, which is good. It keeps the series fresh. It means that there is always a challenge on. Granted, maybe not as much of a challenge this year, just simply with the amount of time Will's put in, and I can't exactly blame him. He's been second fiddle ever since I think 2020 was his first series here competition, and even 2019 he was pretty close up behind Brenton Foley and Phil both for the 2019 championship. So I can't blame him for putting in all the work he put into the championship this year. And you know, as we're talking in the interviews, talking about with him in the interviews after Pukekohe, the teams is something he's thinking about, but he didn't even realise where the teams was at until he went looking. So obviously drivers was his primary focus, but with how close the team championship is, definitely the focus team will turn to that now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The driver's title sewed up quite comprehensively. He can't be beaten even with the maximum 300 points on the table for any one driver this round. He is a round clear and some. Is actually almost close to 2 rounds clear of his nearest competitor on the standings. So it is official. It is over and done with for 2023 in terms of a driver's perspective. We will take a look at both the drivers and the team's points in the next couple of moments, because there's a lot to play out tonight. There is standard qualifying, 10 minutes. There is a top 10 shootout tonight as well, so that will be an interesting point to see. 20 drivers present, so half will get in and half will sit and watch the shootout from the sidelines. And then we have the twin sprint format. A little bit of a change in the format too, because we don't do this one all that often. The first race will be the results of qualifying and the shootout. Will form the starting grid, and then the second race is a progressive result from race 1 to race 2. So where you start race 2 is where you have finished in race number 1. So a little bit of a different format. There's sometimes we do this type of a format, sometimes we do a dual qualifying format, and then in the cases where we've had triple headers this year, it's been a progressive from race 1 to race 2 and race 2 to race 3. So for the final time, we have a sprint round format tonight. So importantly, what is the math? What do people need to do tonight? So let's have a little bit of a look at this. Drivers' standings coming up for you right now. So this is the state of play. We have mentioned it a few times. Devonish is the champion in waiting, 629 points clear of Tim Redmond in second place. Now, Tim is not here this weekend, so unfortunately for him, his car, I believe, is vacant unless he's managed to find a substitute in the last handful of minutes. That car is going to be not here tonight. So then the real attention turns to what's happening behind Rhodey. Mathematically, any of those next 4 drivers can take second and third in the standings. Brendan Ross, Curtis Sigmanis, or Termo to his friends, Brenton Foley, and the South Australian himself, Noah Turra. So it is all up for grabs with Redmond sitting on the sidelines now, keeping in mind that the drop round is in effect. Now, this is the stupid part. This is where this comes into play here. Brenton Foley is the only driver in the Supercars field who is actually dropping points. And the reason for that is because he's accrued points at every single round, unlike several of his other competitors in the list there that have either missed a round or they have had a DNF. Remember, Will Devonish has contested every round, and so too has Termo, but they had a shocker at the Sandown 400 and scored 0 points. So that was their drop round. Similar vein to the likes of Brendan Ross, who had a drop round at some point with a dual DNF. So that's the points that he's got. So Brenton Foley, if he didn't have that drop round, he would currently be sitting third on the standings right now. So that's sort of flipped the script on its head here. So if any of the drivers are watching before they go out on the track tonight, and they shouldn't be watching because they're in a driver's briefing at the moment, that is the state of play. It is very, very tight. There's only, when you look at the math there, it looks insurmountable. 200 points from Redmond down to Noah Turra, but there's 300 points on offer already. So a lot can change in the next hour and a little bit.
Yeah, realistically, I didn't even realize that Redmond wasn't here tonight until you mentioned it. So that's going to be a real stinger. He's taken advantage of a drop round here and there into maintaining his position in second in the team championship, the drivers' championship, because when he's been here, he's been second or third best generally in the field. There's just been the exceptions of, Rossi's had some strong moments. Obviously, through Enduro Cup, Rossi and Rosella are up there. Rosella by himself, pretty strong as well. But Tim's been able to stay pretty close. Not points pretty close, but he's been able to stay in second. With no Tim tonight, and even if someone's in his car, that will only affect the team's championship. It's unless something goes wrong for any of the four behind him, he's going to find himself in sixth then tonight.
Yeah, that's
after
right.
a strong season, which has had him in second, because they're all too close to him. It's going to take a mistake from he's going to, no matter what happens, he's going to miss out on a series or a season podium, which is a shame because he's put a really good effort this year. But yeah, just missing out. That's how it's played out. But that was I just did that head math, and that's quite unfortunate. So yeah, any of those other four drivers, counting them order at my end, because my end doesn't include the drop math just yet. But Foley, Ross, Igmanis, Turra, all out there for a shot at second and third in the drivers' championship.
Yeah, you're spot on. And to think as well, Tim Redmond's not only missed the one round, he's missed two at least. I'm just looking at the rough math in the point standings. He missed the first round at Calder Park, and he also missed the round at Simmons Plains. So he's missed 2 rounds. So he's dropping 2 sets of 0 points effectively because he hasn't got any points to make up for that other round that's there. So to be second with a round to go and miss this final round, that's a pretty good effort from Tim. Just goes to show how consistent he's been across the season. Like, I'm just looking at his numbers. I can't see anything lower, just high level than 11th. There was an 11th place finish in one of the races at Townsville. That's his lowest. Outside of that, he's finished 8th or above virtually every race. Actually, there was a 14th at Sydney, so I've gone all the way back.
So, he's only had 2 races where he's finished outside the top 10, which says something. 2 races out of the top 10 and then an 8th. Most of his races, he's got an average finish of 4.7.
Yeah,
so he's been
right
top
up there.
5 basically all season.
Yeah, so only behind Luke Rosella and Will Devonish as well. So Rosella basically is a 1.1. He's virtually been at the top step of the podium almost every time he's been on track. Will Devonish at 2.8, and then Tim Redmond at Noah Turra at 4.5, and then Tim Redmond at 4.7. So yeah, he's definitely deserving of being up there at the pointy end of the equation. Luke Rosella, speak of the devil, the other South Australian in the field, he's not going to finish higher than 7th because even with a maximum 300 points on the table, he can't go any further than 7th. And there's a few drivers there, Locke and Wedding both here as well, so that'll be interesting to see how they go. And Daniel Cox, unfortunately, missing tonight as well, so there is a substitute driver in that car in the form of Scott Murrell. If we go over the page and look at the balance of the top 20, Peter Thrower heads that one, and then he's just pursued by an absolute plethora of Commodores. So Phil Boak, Zach Brown, who's not here, Leonard Grossell, Dane McKenzie and co. All of those drivers are here. There's still a lot to play out there as well for the minors. Look how tight, the likes of, Zach Brown, Leonard Grossell, Dane McKenzie and Phil Boak all are. There's not a lot separating those drivers. And don't rule out Cam and Bailey as well. They're pretty close behind too. So even positions outside the top 10 can change with a short moment's notice. So that's something to be very mindful of there. Teams, so let's go to teams because that is where the big interest is. The teams championship, very, very important to 2 teams. Have a look how close it is at the top. 12 points is absolutely nothing in it. So this is going to be absolutely a crucial round for both the Real Holden Pixel Racing team. So that's Luke Rosella and Brendan Ross and Will Devonish and Curtis Igmanis. They are the 2 we're going to have the eyes on here, or the 4 drivers we're going to have the eyes on here, because where they finish has been critical. So it's always been the likes of Rosella and Devonish sort of out front, and then it's all been really down to where Brendan Ross and Egmanis have finished over the last couple of rounds, because Ross had sort of seemed to have a little bit of the upper hand in the second half of the season, Rhodey, and that's where that deficit started to get erased and eventually has turned the other way to the real Holden Pixel Racing team on top. It was only the last round at Pukekohe that gap shrunk.
Yeah, it's been a more consistent season for Ross, which is why he's sitting just above Egmanis on the point sheet. But Chemo does hold, I'm just double checking, but even with Enduro Cup factored in, with Enduro Cup factored in, they're 2 apiece on wins for the season. But obviously, Ross's wins have been assisted by Luke Rosella, whereas Tomo got his by himself. Obviously, those two being at Watkins. But he's had some good rounds this year, Tomo. He's had some very average rounds on pace, as opposed to Ross, who's sort of been there or thereabouts. He had a slightly average, I think, sort of middle end of the year, and then through Enduros, he's picked up a bit, obviously, through the assistance of Luke Rosella. But even in the single driver events that we had, he's been doing all right as well. So it's really going to see how that plays out. I could go either way. It depends on where the pace is at. At the moment, Ross is quite comfortably ahead of, or he was ahead of Noah on, I believe drivers have disappeared, which would be them all. I think they're going to get tyres, I think. But I was just looking at the stuff in game, and I think Ross was sitting ahead of Termo on pace.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
It is a very, very tight fight. And then the other part of the puzzle that's there as well is the amped up racing by CRE versus Beyond Racing battle, which again is a little bit of a shame, because without Tim Redmond, that would otherwise have been very, very close tonight. I can see that Peter Thrower is here, and then both the amped up racing cars of Locke and Noah Tara are here as well. So unfortunately, I think that that's going to be a fait accompli for the CRE and amped up racing stable, but anything's possible. This place is lined with concrete, so don't think for any one shred of a doubt for one moment that it is a done deal. But on paper, with 2 versus 1 and 2 very, very quick drivers there in the cars that are in third in the team's championship, it looks like it's going to be a fight that is pretty much over and done with. So that's the stats. That's where it's at in terms of teams' points and in terms of the drivers' points coming into tonight. So some very, very important permutations there. Just waiting on a handful of drivers to jump back into the server, which does give us an opportunity to have a look at this place. Adelaide, South Australia. Right on the southeastern corner of the Adelaide CBD is the Adelaide Parkland Circuit. Been a mainstay on the calendar for many, many years. Did have that hiatus in the middle of in the last couple of years when the government decided to scrap the Adelaide Supercars round. It was revived a couple of years ago. It's also been used for the Formula One Grand Prix all the way up until its the last round that was held there in 1995 before the switch to Albert Park, and then it was shortened to its modern day layout, which we come to know and love. 14 turns, Roadie, of concrete lined streets.
Yep. And you and I were both on track. Actually, it's funny how things have played out. You, despite not being a full-time entrant, I think you were responsible for a team getting second in the Super 3 Teams Championship by virtue of how many times you sat and filled in for it. But you and I were both here last week for Dev Series, and based on Dev Series tracking, obviously we've seen in perhaps, I can't use the word I really wanted, I was going to use, I have to come up with another one for it, but we're going to see probably a slightly more tamer approach to the racing than we saw in Dev Series, especially, I think, well, I say that, but there is 2 races, which shorter races tend to bring a little bit more energy to them. But yeah, we saw it at actually about the same end of the pack last week, what the racing was like. I think we're going to see something probably fairly similar tonight.
Yeah, I think so. This is going to be a corker. I've actually just noticed that the lap count there says 29. It has, in fact, 28 laps, not 29 laps. It's actually just physically, the 90 kilometre distance is just physically short of 28 laps by about 150 metres. So it's to get to 90 kilometres, you have to do 27.95 laps. So it equates to 28. So that's the mathematics there for you. So 20 drivers, 10 minutes for qualifying, and 1 pole position to achieve. So there's just a reminder, the first part of qualifying does in fact just set the grid for positions 11 through to 20. And then after that, we will cycle back around for a few seconds and we will have ourselves a top 10 shootout for the drivers that are good enough to make it. Now, qualifying lap record and race lap record, I don't believe will probably be under serious threat tonight, Rhodey. And that's mainly because the hard tyre is in play. So it's a bit more of a durable tyre. It's the same sort of tyre we saw last season when we did the Adelaide endurance round here. And a lot of drivers don't like it. Let's just put it that way. Let's be blunt. A lot of drivers do not like a hard tyre, but unfortunately they've got to put up with it. That's the card that they've been dealt.
Yeah, got a nice queue setting up at the exit of pit lane, with the exception of one driver who went out early, Leonard Gross. I'm not sure if he missed the fact that it's not going to count his first lap, or whether there's an alternate strategy at play there. So he will be the first car on track, but he won't be the first one with the timed lap. Timed laps will only count if you cross the pit lane when the light is green. So the first car on track will be had him before. I think it is Noah Turr at the head of the queue.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's Noah Turr at the head of the queue. A couple of drivers still making their way out. There's one of the substitutes tonight, Ryan Smith. He's decided to jump into Ben Hall's gravedigger machine. Ben Hall with some very sad family news this week, so he's doing a couple of things from the family, and understandably, family always comes first in amongst all your other activities. Several other drivers taking some opportunities to substitute tonight as well. Brapp, we're seeing him in the PBF Motorsport number 12. So he's out there tonight having a bit of a putt there for PBF Motorsport.
He's actually in the 2 tonight.
Oh, he's decided.
Last minute change, yeah. With no drivers for PBF Motorsport, and Zach pulling out last minute, we brought him across to the 2 instead.
Yeah, so there you go. So he's actually jumped into the PBF Race Engineering number 2, normally piloted by Zach Brown. So yes, last minute change there. So we've seen him. We've also seen the likes of Scott Murrell. He was on the broadcast just before we went live. You saw him in the back of shot. There he is in the Daniel Cox Envoy Super CRE Anson Motorsport machine. So that's his chariot for the night. And then we've got a debutant. What a way to make your debut in ASR Supercars competition, Wayne Walker. So the name probably familiar to a number of people from R Factor 2 Down Under Series. Multi-time champion over there. Very, very experienced racer on the R Factor 2 platform. Looking for a little bit of a different challenge. So what a way to step it up and make your mark on ASR Supercars.
Absolutely. I mean, Wayne will be interesting to see how he goes. In practice, he again, it's very hard to get onto the pace of the likes of Will Devonish and Luke Rezzola, it would seem, over here. But he wasn't too far off. I think he was 3rd or 4th with the session ending. And yeah, as you mentioned, multi-time champion over the R52 Down Under Series. We're going to see how he goes over here. And potentially, we've talked, and there's no definitive plans in the pipeline as yet, but we've talked before about the move to RF2. Potentially on the way over there, we might have a new contender, a new carrot for a lot of drivers to chase with his RF2 experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Just keeping an eye on things here. There's a few drivers starting to put their first laps down. Luke Razzola gave the turn 8 wall quite a rub there on the exit, getting quite close to the wall there on the exit at turn 11 as well. So getting the first times are about to start popping up. It's actually Leonard Grossel. Actually did register him a time, so he's a very lucky boy there.
Yeah, I'm getting the impression perhaps maybe to game desync, maybe his own versus our own, which is how he got out and got a timed lap in. Because I'd swear that you don't get timed laps with the lane red. But yeah, maybe possibly his end was something different to ours. There is a 200 ping difference to play into that, and maybe something else as well.
So there you go, Rosella unsurprisingly straight to the top. Will Devonish not too far behind him as well, so just 2/10 of a second in arrears, running the CRE throwback livery that we saw at the Sandown 400 last year for the retro round with Cam Rutledge piloting that car, and he loves that livery, so I think Will be chuffed to bits to run that livery tonight. Wayne Walker popped up into 4th place there as well. His first competitive run. Noah Turr in the 3 as well. So there's plenty still to play out. And then Brendan Ross, this is the one we've been talking about. This battle here between Ross and Egmanis. So that's the one we're going to keep an eye out for. Ross currently 5th. Egmanis, I don't believe, yet to set a time. I think he left the lane pretty late. Yes, he has. So he's only just starting a flying lap now.
Yeah, I'd say actually looking at that, he's probably either come out and picked up a track cut, or he's come out and gone back in again. But yeah, so a big push for Tomo. Tomo also running a similar source livery to Will. We're running the 2004 Federal Electrical based livery. Tomo's got the 2006 car. This was the one run by Lowndes at Phillip Island. Obviously on the Lowndes car it was Lowndes as a play on, it was run with the Better Electrical colours, but it was actually run with Vodafone sponsorship, the Lowndes, or the now part of Lowndes, being a reference to the Vodafone stuff. Similar thing. Tomo was actually just going to show his name normally. It was actually me that put to him, hey, if you're going to do that car, surely you do something similar. And he went, oh, you know what, fair enough.
Yep.
So that's why it says M. Garnis on the side rather than his standard surname.
There you go. So a little bit of a history lesson there from Rody. Egmanis through the turn 11. Let's see where this time pops up, because there's only half the session to go here. It's a short session, 10 minutes. It's not a lot of time, so the impetus is on the drivers to get out, get the laps banked, and get back in, change your set of boots, and get back out there and go again. So Egmanis goes 6th, so 2 and a bit tenths of a second behind Ross. So I'm not sure if that will be 100% safe just yet. He's got a little bit more work to do, I think. Now, Lockie Lock had a pretty slow lap last time around, 1 minute 21.7, so definitely slower than he would ideally like to go. I didn't see whether there was a mistake in there or whether there was a track cut or something going on there, but through turn 8, leaving plenty of room on the table. Second sector split comes up just on the other side of turn 11, and the first sector split comes up between turns 5 and 6. There is your time there, so between 10 and 11 I should say. Looking a little bit better, still 1.5 seconds down on the top time in the newly liveried Hot Wheels machine. They've had a good livery session, I think, this year, the guys from Amped Up Racing. Plenty of different liveries. Oh, and a big slide off final corner too, so that's not going to go down well for Locke. And gains some time, but doesn't gain the place. So yeah, got a bit more work to do there.
Yeah, in the case of Locke's car and also Noah Taro's car, a lot of liveries I've mentioned have had some sources across the year. That's sort of been one of my side projects, keeping an eye on that and mentioning it during broadcasts. This is one of the few, it's one of the few alts that we've seen that doesn't have a specific reference. These are just both just indigenous, not the right word so much, but original designs.
Yes.
That Lockie Lock has come up with for him and Noah Taro for this weekend.
Speaking of original, Bailey Hall run the same livery virtually all season long. He's a surprise packet at the minute, sitting inside the top 10. The time he's got on the board's not too shabby. It's the last time that's under a 1 minute 20. I still don't think he's going to be safe, and neither does he. He's actually pulling over to go and put another set of boots on.
Yeah, he was up on Rosella through the first sector. He struck the wall a little bit coming down the back straight. That would cut off of him then at that point to talk about Lockie Lock for a bit. But yeah, some really good pace for Bailey Hall this weekend. I'm not sure. It's not like he can't get there anyway. When we know what his pace was like last year in Dev Series, but hasn't been the best year, I think, for either of the Young Guns cars. Both drivers that came out of Dev Series with a lot of pace, a lot of potential, and maybe weren't quite able to convert that across. Bailey's done a little bit of a job when his teammate Nathan Higginson, who's just ahead of him on track. But they've both had a bit of a struggle adapting, it would seem. So yeah, actually Higginson back to the lane and Hall deep and wide, and he might be coming back to the lane. No, actually just waiting for a spot in the traffic. But yeah, to lead into what you're talking about, the safe stuff, I was looking at about a minute ago. I think Ross is probably the last safe driver.
Yeah, I would say you're probably right there. So he was 5th. He was a 19.5. Ryan Smith has actually just jumped up out of nowhere into 6th place in the Gravedigger car. So that's a great effort from him. I'd say he's probably safe on a 19.4. Yeah. And Ross has gone quicker as well. So. Just goes back to 5th with a 19.4 as well. So that definitely some changes in the game here in the early going. Brenton Foley, I'd be surprised if he's not inside the 10 after this, because he's sort of been on that little bit of a cusp. There's a plethora of drivers that have done a 1 minute 20.1. There's himself, Brapp and Liccardo. They're the ones sort of on the cusp here. Liccardo's the last one in the 10 at the moment on a 20.103, so he's definitely not safe.
No. And with the tightness of the pace you're seeing qualifying throughout the season, yeah, there's still a few guys on the cusp. A lot of drivers we expect to see in there, or from that list at least. Foley, be surprised to see him out, but Brad's been pretty good on pace this year. Is he coming off the back of being the Super 2 Drivers Champion? He's coming up to Supercars next year. As to which team we're not sure yet. But obviously been the Super 2 Drivers Champion. A few teams are circling, yeah, Bratt moving up. Liccardo's back into some pace again now, so good to see him up in the 10, but he'll have to go faster. Hall probably the surprise packet. But if he can keep that pace up, yeah, good to see him up there. And Grosso, we know what his pace has been like, but he hasn't quite had the consistency this year. He's actually come off the back of an illness that was very questionable as to whether he'd make it tonight. So the fact he's here and he's coming in last minute on a borrowed setup, he's doing pretty well as well.
Yeah, so Brapp has on a flying lap at the moment here. This would be enough at current pace to get him into the top 10. No, he lost it at the final corner. I'm not sure if he was accidentally balked there by Walker, who was just prepping for a last flying run. But Foley behind him actually managed to jump into the top 10. He went up to 7th. He's on a 19.7, just ahead of Igmanis on a 19.7. So there's a late change there for you, as they both only have one more shot at getting themselves secured for the shootout. Brapp sort of on the on his current pace. He's about what he did on the previous laps. He's got a bit more time to go. Thrower, I think, is done, and he knows it, so he won't turn another lap in the shootout. Liccardo is just across the line. Sorry, not Liccardo. I should say it's Mackenzie. He hasn't changed his name. That's gone back the other way.
I was saying, yeah, conflicting stuff, but he is actually Liccardo. That's something we can talk about.
We can talk about. Yeah, love. But, he's outside, so he's missed out.
He's out. Yeah, and the other one we missed as well in there as well, actually. Scott Mull just jumped up to 11th as well. He just missed. He was a 7/1000 behind Bailey Hall. The one we missed as well, though, put himself very safe. Curtis Igmanis, who's jumped Wayne Walker up into 4th.
Yeah, so that's a very safe move.
Actually, Ross just jumping up to 5th as well there just then.
So a little bit of late movement here. Wedding, I think, might be the last one to the line. He's currently 16th. 20.6 was his best. I haven't had a look at the sector times to see how he was going, if he was on an improvement or not. Take a bit of a monumental effort from here to jump into the 10. Improves, goes up 2 more spots to 14th. So he is unfortunately missing out on the shootout, and it doesn't look like there are any more drivers that are out there on a flying lap. So there you go. Top 10 is set. So into the shootout. Luke Rosella, Noah Tara, Will Devonish, Curtis Igmanis, Brendan Ross, and then Wayne Walker, Ryan Smith, Brenton Foley, Leonard Grossel, and Bailey Hall. They were the drivers that made your shootout. So we will take a little bit of a photograph of that and just keep an eye out on who managed to get in. So Scott Murrell, the unlucky one there, Rhodey. I'm looking at the lap times here. So everybody that got into the top 10 did a 1 minute 19.9 or better. Scott Murrell missed out by 7 thousandths of a second getting into the shootout. He did a 19.922 to Bailey Hall's 19.915. So Murrell oh so close to cracking the top 10.
Absolutely, and like he's had some really good pace this year in Dev Series. He hasn't necessarily quite adapted the way he wants to, and he's been in two minds about coming up and doing wildcards or a guest drive in Supercars. Very much has the pace for it, but isn't quite comfortable with, I suppose, some of the energy you find in the mid-pack. Probably preferring to be a bit clearer of that, which based off of even just starting position on 11th, sure, mathematically mid-pack, but he's in a good position to try and get a bit above that if he's got the race pace.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So then the balance of the ones, like as I said, so Murrell was the one who was sort of the unlucky one, and then Liccardo and Brapp right behind them. So there was a few quick drivers that unfortunately did not make the grade. They had a little bit too much work to do in the ladder going of qualifying there, and they're going to find themselves on the outskirts of the 10. So positions that are locked away there. So Murrell in 11th, Liccardo in 12th. You can fill me in later on why he's changed his name back to Liccardo there, Rhodey. That's something for offline. Brapp, then Lewis Wedding, who jumped up to 14th. NZ Snipes and Peter Thrower. Then Lockie Lock, unfortunately, couldn't get much further than a 20.6, so he'll be a bit disappointed with that. And then Nathan Higginson, Cam Rutledge, and Cheese. Almost hard to say, Cam Rutledge on the back row of the grid, Rhodey. That's something I wouldn't have predicted at the beginning of the night.
Absolutely, yeah. Similar driver, sort of in there. It's about some pace. Cam's years in Supercars he has been trending upwards every year. Historically, been floating around the back end of the 10, and I'm just going to quickly check sitting on the point standings. I know we talked about it earlier, but with everything else that's happened, it's flown through my brain. Currently sitting 16th, so maybe not quite the year of strength that he's wanted to have. He had a few drivers that have popped in as sort of mid, sort of part-time entrants that have popped in there. Boak was a full-time entrant, but obviously availability has meant he's here or there. I imagine he's probably out or hanging or hanging with, is spending time with his wife tonight rather than on the sim, which was part of the deal he had to make somewhere, was try and find some time for the wife along with the sim racing. So I think that's meant he's missed a few rounds this year, but he's currently ahead of him on the standings, as is Zach Brown. He's missed a few rounds here and there as well, like tonight. And Leonard Grossel has missed quite a few rounds at points. There was an Enduro car prepared for him and McNichol, but they end up only making the first round at Sandown. So yeah, a bit of a more of a trying year for Cam, and definitely starting off the back isn't going to help. But I suppose the upshot of it is the only place he can go from there is up.
That's important, yeah, and that's what we always say. You know, you've got to take the good with the bad sometimes. You have a lean year. It's not the end of the world, but you know, some drivers, I guess, have some realistic expectations, and then there's drivers that sort of have the higher level expectations, and unfortunately get a bit upset sometimes when it doesn't materialise. But nonetheless, that's what happens sometimes. So here goes Bailey Hall out on his first flying lap. Warm-up lap, I should say. Sorry. So first time, I think, for a very long time that we've seen Bailey Hall in a top 10 shootout. I can't remember the last time he made a shootout road. I'm almost thinking it must be going back to the Dev Series days last year.
Possibly. I don't think. He's had some really good pace popped up here and there in qualifying, and unfortunately I've got to easily track in front of me what rounds we've had shootouts versus not. But I think quite possibly first, if not first for a while. Definitely, I'd say with 90% confidence first in Supercars, but definitely would have been up there last year in Dev Series.
Yeah, I think so too. And that was the real catalyst, wasn't it? He went from Super 3 to Super 2 in a big hurry when it came in Dev Series, and then the inevitable up to Supercars. And as you said, that's sort of the direction that Brap is going next year at this rate. Don't know if any more of the development series drivers have decided if they're going to end up in Supercars next year, or more to the point, if we as the admin team have decided that they're going up to Supercars next year. There's a few people questioning whether or not they might be able to do what the likes of Cheese and Freakish did a couple of years ago, where they were permitted to do both because they were on that cusp of borderline being in one or the other, and that's something that is yet to be decided. So here we go, shootout time. Bailey Hall, the lap he did to get in, 1 minute 19.915. So let's see how close he gets to his marker from qualifying. So into turn one, opening it up nicely, using all the approach on the outside at one there. Nicely over the curbs, not getting too greedy, keeping it on the black stuff. Now, again, you've got to move the car left and right. This is the hard part of this circuit. You've got to go from left to right, move it back over to the right, pinch it back to the left for the apex, flow it out to the right, use all the real estate, then get it back to the left again to turn to the right. It's just a sequence. They call it the staircase for a reason. It's just lefts and rights, ups and downs. You just got to flow the car. He's got the wall there on the outside of turn 7, so that's going to hurt his run down towards the infamous turn 8.
Yeah, crucially though, that was what he did on his lap that rocketed him into the top 10, so maybe it's a good luck charm doing that. But still a very quick run we're seeing through. Similar strategies we're seeing as guys were adapting in Dev Series in the shootout last week, as we're seeing here. There's been a mix of guys in the staircase using second and third. It was second for Hall on the run through the first sector there. Nice run out of the hairpin as well. Second out of the hairpin, which is managing the wheel spin, maybe a little bit slower if you can't keep it in the power band. But lowest is going here is second. I know Will Devonish is a champion of first not being a racing gear. Perhaps a strategy that Hall subscribes to as well, but a good run now down to the final corner, leaving in second here again as well, just really trying to manage that wheel spin, especially with those cold, hard tyres. Not going to get too much heat in them in a lap, and he does come across the line to set a 20.390.
So not too bad, about 0.4 of a second away from what he did to get into the shootout, so that'll be pretty respectable for Bailey Hall. And he will take a seat in the garage, and we'll turn our attention to the next man out in the shootout, which happens to be Leonard Grossel in the 666 PBF Huron and Son Rennsport machine. His time to get in, again, he was actually he was a little bit quicker than Bailey Hall. He was a 1 minute 19.746, so a little bit of extra margin. So he was a little bit safer at the end of qualifying compared to all the drivers that were on the 19.9s. and off we go with Leonard Grossel. Now, I think the terminology you were looking for a bit earlier, Rhodey, when it came to talking about first not being a racing gear, there's an old adage that I think it was Cam McKinnon mentioned to me when we were talking about getting a diff for Dane Liccardo's Falcon that he was running in saloon cars at the time, and it's gears are for going, brakes are for slowing. He was a champion of using the gears to slow the car when you don't particularly want to be doing that, especially when you've gone and welded the inner parts of the diff.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a trick to all that. Yeah, you know, it depends on how the car is set up as to how much you want to use engine braking versus obviously just regularly braking. But yeah, just kind of what we're looking at now. A little bit off of Bailey's time through that first sector, but I did mention that Bailey was eclipsing Rosella at the time when he set his top 10 lap, or the lap that got him into the top 10 wasn't necessarily his final lap, but that gives you an idea of where Bailey's extracting his pace. Good run so far for Grossel. Maybe not troubling the extremities quite as much as we saw from Hall, but maybe not making too much of a difference. He's only 0.5 of a second off.
He's pulled some time back.
Yeah, he is someone that is using a bit more of the engine braking we talked about, using a bit more of first gear, or using first gear to begin with, which we're not seeing from, we didn't see from Bailey Hall. At a second again for this last corner, nice bit of curb, just managing that wheel spin just nicely. A good run, straight run down the side of the track.
Ooh,
and
tight.
Falls just short.
Yeah, falls short of Bailey Hall, so that's a change for position there by virtue of the top 10 shootout for Leonard Grossel and Bailey Hall. They swapped positions from where they were, and this is something that we saw in the development series last week, Rhodey. We saw the likes of Darren Loughnane, who went out first and absolutely laid it down, like in terms of lap time compared to what he did. Even he was a bit surprised, and he gained something like, was it 5 or 6 spots after qualifying, after shootout was done and dusted? He went out first.
He went out first, so he qualified. He ended the session in 10th. He left the session in 4th from memory.
Yeah, so it's proof of what can swing, how quickly these things can change in a shootout. So we've just seen a couple of positions change there. I mean, that's the worst position that Grossel's going to be, is going to be 10th. There's still 8 cars to go here, as Foley is on his way. One of the stalwarts of the category. Car 074. He did a 119.700 to get in, and unfortunately for Foley, that's rather nasty, and that is going to see him sink to the bottom of the pile. Got to keep going though. That's the important bit. You've got to keep going, and you've got to put a time on the board. Unfortunately for Foley, half a second the deficit. That's a problem.
Look, it's not insurmountable. We've seen other drivers pull back from this, but one thing I will say is that the 2 drivers ahead of him were worried about rear tyre temps at the back half of this lap. He won't be with that. He will put a lot of heat through the rear of the rear end, or the Dunlops on the rear of this car. Yeah, it's a bit of work to make that up. Nice, I think it was just a nice little lazy slide that wasn't quite kept under control. We know from Foley he can generate pace from the size angle, from the slip angle of the car, but just a little bit further from that, and he's made a little bit of time.
2 tenths. He found 2 tenths.
Yeah, 2 tenths, about 10th and a half.
Yeah.
He's going to need something magical in this last corner though to really pick up the rest of that.
Yeah. So I mean, he's now just try and salvage as much of the lap as he possibly can here, out of the final corner and down to the start-finish line, and 20.6. I mean, respectively salvaged. So not too much he can do there. Let's have a look at this one on the old Outworld. Actually, can we get the Outworld Broadcasting replay up? For some reason, it doesn't look like it wants to behave for me. Here we go. Now, we will get it up and running. Let's have a look at old Foley's little moment in the sun here, coming through the first couple of corners. So here we go. Into turn number 1, 2, 3. Nicely through there, and just picked it up in the power band, and car just shot all the way to the left there. And he didn't get the wall by a hell of a lot, so that was the bit that got me. Like, it looked a lot worse than it actually was. Yeah,
as I said, just a big old lazy slide that just kept going. It's very easy to do that through that corner. You're on the throttle, buzzing the limiter. You're really pushing the edge of the tyres, as Murrell and Darren pointed out in the chat, though. 10 points for style, and Foley is still the show from Darren. But yeah, very much an exciting lap, not necessarily a quick lap, but importantly, he's got time on the board with Ryan Smith now out on track.
Yeah, he certainly does. So Ryan Smith on the march towards turn 1 now. And if you're Brenton Foley, I'm sure he'd be going back to the thumbnail image for tonight's stream, because if you look very closely in the background, you'll see car 074 going for a little bit of a slide. So maybe that was a bit of a bad omen for Brenton Foley tonight. So Ryan Smith did a 1 minute 19.498 to get in. Definitely the surprise packet of qualifying, and he's up at the moment on Bailey Hall's time by about 2/3 to 3/4 of a tenth of a second. So not a lot in it at the first sector split. Good exit from turn 7. Now the run down the hill, down towards turn number 8. Braking just a little bit just to settle the nose of the car, get it turned in, use all the road, run it right out to the wall. That's perfect. Absolutely millimetre perfect to the fence through turn 8. And a little bit off the apex for turn number 8, but that's not too bad.
Yeah, the one thing is he pulled it up. He's up nearly 2/10 now. That was one of his problem corners in practice, was running it too deep at turn 8. He's come off of Dev Series a week before there practicing. He had one or two issues there from memory as well. But a really good run so far. Still got the last corner to negotiate before he can truly put that time on the board. But it's been a very good lap for Ryan so far. Still obviously a few tenths off of his entry time, but crucially it will put him onto the front row as things sit.
Beautifully controlled lap. Time in all sectors. He'll be very, very pleased with that. So a 1 minute 20.177. So close to going into the 1 minute 19. So good job for Ryan Smith. Ben Hall will be proud to see that car up the grid at this point in time.
Absolutely. He's also the first driver of the 4 in the shootout to improve.
No, he didn't improve on his time.
Yeah. Well, no. He's the first to improve upon the position in which he entered in by the time he set for himself. The exception being Bailey Hall, where the two went in behind him, but he was other way. He's the only one so far to have retained his position.
I said before the night, let's have some fun, but that doesn't mean mince your words.
No. What it is I haven't had nearly enough Asahi yet to really kick in the good energy. We'll get there.
All right. Well, you'll have an opportunity to go and get another bottle between the shootout and race trim. So, for the moment, let's focus on Wayne Walker, the debutant tonight. This will round out the first 5 positions that have been decided, or first 5 drivers to go out in the shootout. Beautifully controlled over the chicane. Nice little move out to the outside of the wall. They're using all the road. That's exactly what they've got to do. Bit of inside curb, right out to the fence. Using all the extremes through the staircase. Now to turn 5. Again, bit of curb on the inside. Look at that split. Absolutely nothing in it. But then he's bowled it wide there at turn 6. So he's run too deep. Got probably a little bit excited by what he saw on the dash there. Then he was right in the hunt and then ran quite wide at turn 6. So that's going to be painful here. I'm expecting that he'll drop some time in this middle sector. And then let's see what happens on the other side if he can get it all back. How committed is he through turn 8? Just as committed as Ryan Smith was. Millimetre perfect out to the turn 8 wall. What does this timestamp say at the second sector mark? He didn't lose a lot. That is a massive surprise. I thought surely with running wide at turn number 6, he was going to probably drop at least 0.2 of a second. He somehow managed to just keep himself in the game here. This is a great lap. Absolutely, really good lap there. I would say I expected a bit of time loss. He was the only one so far up 5th through turn 8, whereas most of the drivers were sitting in 6th. But yeah, still a very good run, and in the end, nothing in it. Pretty well. Absolutely great recovery. Nothing in it. Loses, what's that? 1/100th of a second. Nothing in it, and did a really, really good job to try and recover as best as he could. Now just straight down the escape road at turn number 4. And with that, half the field positions are decided. So as it sits right now, there's a net gain for Ryan Smith and a net gain for Bailey Hall and a net loss for the other 3. Oh, Ross on the outlap, pushing hard through turn number 8. Rubs the wall on the other side. So I wasn't expecting to see that. Definitely putting some heat into the rear Dunlop tyres there, coming out of the hairpin. So Brendan Ross, what did he do to get into the shootout? So he wasn't that much quicker, I believe, than Wayne Walker. Walker did a 19.359 to get in. Ross was a 19.266, fractionally behind Egmanis. So this is the battle. The next 2 drivers, Ross and Egmanis, they'll be the ones to keep an eye out for over the next 3 to 4 minutes to see how they go. Oh, bit nasty over the curbs there, running through 1, 2 and 3. Good shots from the chopper here, down to turn number 4. Good illustration of where you need to place the car to clip those apexes using the circuit extremes. Just left to right, clip the next apex, move it over, then move it back again. Good time. Look at the margin from Ross. Got 2.5 tenths of a second on Ryan Smith. So very, very committed through the first part of the lap.
Yeah, I was going to say the run through here in the on the warm-up lap, probably indicative perhaps of a slight mindset change for Ross coming into the shootout, obviously with where things were in practice,
big
the
moment.
wall again.
Yeah, big moment, got the wall, sort of had a little bit of a slide job on and then had to get the steering corrected, and the car just rocked a little bit there, but he did manage to keep it under control. He has lost a little bit of time through all of that, but still up on Ryan Smith's time. So at the moment, be tracking for provisional pole. He'd be fractionally outside of a 1 minute 20 or a sub 1 minute 20. Narrows the approach up. That's an interesting tactic coming into the final corner. And I think that he might have just done that just to give himself some insurance policy so he didn't touch the grass on the outside. Gained a little bit of time by doing so, just outside of 120. So 120.052 for Ross. So yeah, provisionally quickest.
It does look like a marginally upset kind of a car in terms of handling balance, the way it was moving around there, especially the back half of the lap. The way that it very much Ross perhaps just driving it put it in the wall at turn 8, but I suspect the way this thing's set up is probably very much borderline on a pace. It doesn't have a nice big wide band of pace. You really got to run it on the knife's edge to get the true pace out of the thing. And as I said, team championship, a lot on the line. A lot of focus might have changed for Ross with Igmanis now about to roll out next, whereas Igmanis at the start was perhaps going to start behind him in the shootout, if at all. But yeah, with the picture now changed for Ross, picture now changed for Igmanis, I suppose, as well, being this high up in practice or in qualifying. It'll be interesting to see what this now means for number 51 coming into the shootout.
We'll soon find out. 1 minute 19.246 is what Igmanis did to get into the shootout. Oh, he's gone deep. That's not a good start to the lap at all. He's gone well deep, locking the brake up at the hairpin. He's going to have to carry that for the whole entire lap now, that little bit of a flat spot on one of the front tyres. Here we go, on board. 1, 2, nice little ride through the chicane there. Turn 3, got the inside curb. That upset the car. You really don't want to touch that inside curb too much at turn 3. And nearly bit it. Oh, he's in the fence! Oh. He's in the fence at 4! That is not good news at all. So, done what Brenton Foley did. Made a crucial mistake in the opening part of the lap. It's going to drop a bunch of time here. Look at that. 2-second loss alone in that first sector. Not what Igmanis wanted to see. This is going to put him, unfortunately, at the back of this group of cars that have already gone out. Let's have a look at, we'll have to bring that one up on the replay because we were watching from the onboard when he went into the fence, so I didn't get a really good view there of exactly what he did. We'll bring that up on the other side of his lap completing. But that was, unfortunately for Igmanis, the pressure has got to him there, and that's going to be a bit of a killer blow from a strategy point of view for CRE Engineering.
Potentially. All it does is at worst is it puts him to the back of the 10. The worst you're going to end up at this point is, well, the worst you end up is 10th. He can still make improvements from here. With the guys coming ahead of him, there is a lot on the table for the 3 in front. And we've seen some guys getting progressively closer and closer to the track cut through turn 2. Nobody's done it yet, but doesn't mean that nobody could be doing it. So 123.2, obviously not a representative lap for him at all. We'll have a look at that replay of that run through the first couple corners coming up now.
Yep.
But yeah, not a great lap for Temo, but not the end of the story just yet.
No, definitely not. So let's watch this on the replay here as he comes in to start his lap. So down through turn 1 and 2. This was quite nice, but then he got the curb there at 3. That sort of probably upset the car a little bit. And then have a look at this in the braking zone. No locked brakes, no nothing. I just think he was, until the very last minute, I think he was just too late on the brakes, Rody.
Yeah, it might have just been perhaps the upset. Like very early on, the run wide and the lockup we saw at the last corner, the snag of the apex through 3, which you're not normally slow enough and/or positioned enough that you actually hit the apex through turn 3. The apex is actually a meter off the curb usually for your race run through that corner. So to actually make it to the curb, yeah, the car was already slightly out of shape. The curb pitched the car sideways as it does, and then yeah, just to top it off, just running deep at that corner. And yeah, you can get away with running a little deep at the hairpin. You can't at those 90-degree staircase corners. So yeah, worst of 10th, but he could still go up from here. Yeah, and you've got to have the car square in some of those braking zones as well. But they come up fairly quickly at a street circuit like this. So the champion in waiting. Third last out in the shootout. 1 minute 19.126 is the time that he registered to get into the shootout. The 2 cars ahead of him that are yet to come out were both in the 18s, both the South Australians, in Turra and Rosella. So they'll be second last and last in the shootout to come. Devonish up to turn 5.
Looks like a controlled lap so far, apart from that little bit there with the car sort of broke traction coming out of turn 5. But 0.2 of a second to the good on Brendan Ross in car number 15. Got some inside curb there. Flew the car beautifully on 2 wheels through turn 7.
Absolutely, very nice run there through the first half of the lap, coming up now to turn 8. Just a little lift just to get the car stabilised. A little bit of a twist to the rear you could see coming out of the corner, a little probably partially on throttle. But a good job of controlling that and getting it right up to the wall, walking it right over to the wall. Nice run actually through there as well, walking right to the exit curb without touching the exit curb. Very good at spinning cars, but he walked right to the edge of it.
Oh, got the wall!
There, he snagged the tyres.
Yeah, he snagged it at the very last minute, and I looked at the second sector split, and it was half a second to the good. He'll probably lose a little bit of that in the third sector now with giving the tyre wall a rub on the exit of turn 11. That would have got his attention. And now we're going to take the straightest possible path to the start-finish line. And actually, it was very costly.
Oh.
Very, very costly mistake at turn number 11. So provisionally second with 2 cars to go. So the worst he can do there is 4th. But yeah, if only what could have been, Rhodey. That was definitely looking like it was going to be a good lap. Unfortunately, right up until he got the tyres.
Absolutely, yeah. Just kind of a quick look at qualifying just for a reference. But the fastest lap we've seen so far in the shootout is a 20 flat. If you don't have 20 flat in qualifying, you would not have made the shootout. So it says something as to where the pace drop-off is. Part of that is the hard tyres near the track coming. Part of it also is with the reset of the servo back to qualifying, there is a lot less rubber down, but obviously as you go into the session, you get a bit more rubber to work with. And the driver who will have the most rubber to work with so far is coming up now, and it is Noah Tara for Amped Up Racing by CRA.
Yeah, you're certainly right. Good spotting there, Rhodey. If you had done a 20 flat, you would have been 12th in qualifying. So that's what the type of surface it is at the moment. But Noah Tara, 1 minute 18.691 was his time to get into the shootout. So he loves these streets. He's a native. So too is Luke Rosella, who's out next and last in the shootout. Really aggressive steering movements and inputs there for Noah Tara, left and right, up through the chicane, up through the staircase here as well. Gets the first sector split. It looks good. It looks very good, but there's not a lot in it as well. We've seen better splits than that. And through now to turn 7 again, like Devonish, little bit of inside curb on the right-hand tyres, and now down towards turn number 8. Second last man to tackle this corner on their own in the shootout. Uses all the road on the way in, rubs it on the way out. Is there a small little bit of a penalty to pay for doing that? He runs it right down the outside of the road and turns it back in. Misses the apex on the inside. So this is not the cleanest of laps, but the clock says it's fast. That's the important bit if you know Atara.
Yeah, not quite as fast as we saw from Will Devonish. He was faster than Will in the qualifying session coming into the shootout, but crucially, he's doing enough at the moment that we'll see him vaulting ahead of Will Devonish, and unless we're going to see a less than stellar run out of the final corner, probably will push him above Brendan Ross as well. We're going to see in a second.
19.5.
Yes, 19.5. So look at the first driver into the 19s.
Look at the pickup though in the final 2 sectors, right? There was nothing in it at sector 1, and then he gained a full half a second over the second half of the lap. So that's saying something if you know Atara. So provisionally front row for him, and also provisional pole for him, guaranteed front row as it sits right now. That's a more important statistic. And well, what do we say? Where are the superlatives here, Rhodey? I don't think there are very many left when it comes to Luke Rosella. Every time he turns up, he puts the car on pole. He does very, very well to win the majority of the races. And I guess the only thing we can say here, if you are not a regular viewer, is to sit back and watch how it's done. I think that's the only thing you can really say about this guy.
Absolutely, yeah. The only real problem spot I think we was going to likely run into there was the first sector. It was the first chicane, but from what I can tell, he got through there pretty cleanly. Well, I say pretty cleanly, probably was right bordering on clean, but the important bit is the way he's going, he does have a time on the board. And
check the margin.
And it's 4 tenths, nearly 5 tenths the better of Tara's run through there. Obviously, Tara wasn't the quickest, so he's probably only a tenth or two off of the best sector 1 time, but still he's up. Yeah,
he's up. That's the important thing. And he had the car skating on the rears a little bit too in the braking zone coming up to 4, so that was quite a handy job there. Didn't use any brake on the way, and I didn't see a flash of the brake lights going through turn 8 number there, so just a feather of the throttle just to get the car turned in, just to get it to comply. So some drivers will confidence tap the brakes and some of them won't. And he's absolutely pulling out all the stops here. 18s, in the mid-18s is what he's staring at the moment. He was the only driver to go close to a 17 in qualifying. It was an 18 flat when he set his qualifying time. This is going to send him straight to pole position. No mistakes through the final corner. It was meant to be. The South Australians are on the front row for their home race. Rosella does an 18.422 and takes him to pole position. So there you go.
To give you an idea of the strength of that lap, he would have he didn't set an 18. He set an 18 flat to get in, but he could have set that lap in the qualifying and still started this this shootout session in last to from pole. So like very little. I talked about the drop off of the pace, and Rosella's made me a liar because he only lost 4/10 compared to his qualifying lap.
Well, I mean, everybody in terms of their shootout lap versus their qualifying lap had lost time. That wasn't, I guess, the thing to be concerned about.
Yeah.
It was just how close they can get.
The amount of time lost, though. I had in my head, maybe a second, but obviously there's a bit more to it than that. But combination, perfect, probably optimum setup for the lap, getting the tyres scrubbed up nicely, getting some warmth through the car. Obviously the lap itself, but also just the way that the car and the driver and the setup harmonised. We've seen that most of this year, to be fair. Just on another level.
Absolutely.
And really good lap there to be poled by a second.
Yeah, that's the important piece, isn't it? So that's the exclamation point on things, because there is still a couple of things of pride to play for tonight. There's some of the race wins as well. I think that's up for grabs tonight. So there's a few things that, a few of the statistics that need to be looked at in all of this as well. So there you go. So there is your top 10 shootout over and done with. So your full quality grid is officially set. So top 10 shootout results, just to reconfirm there. Rosella and Tara on the front row from Brendan Ross and Will Devenish, Ryan Smith and Wayne Walker, Bailey Hall and Leonard Grossel. So Bailey Hall gained a couple of spots out of all of that. And Foley and Egmanis were the big victims out of all of that. They unfortunately did not have an ideal run on their laps. And they are going to start 9th and 10th. Not all bad news for them. It just means that the strategy part of the equation is a little bit more difficult for them because they're closer to the mid-pack and therefore there's a bit of traffic that needs to be negotiated.
Yeah, one thing I have just picked up on as well, actually, I picked up on, I remembered it, I forgot about it with all the hype. But that is a brilliant lap, and that would set him on pole position if not for the penalty he picked up at Simmons. He picked up a penalty at Simmons for a qualifying infringement, and that penalty was a 3-spot drop at his next solo driver race. And this being the next solo driver race, brilliant lap, but he will be starting from 4th.
Actually, you're right. I didn't pick that up. That is definitely something that I wasn't quite aware of as well. So that is unfortunately something that will need to be factored in. So thank you for reminding me of that one, Rhodey, because that's definitely something that I had completely forgotten about in all of that. So very, very interesting to point that one out. I guess,
so
Rhodey, while we're doing...
Sorry, the important what we're saying is that does still importantly have a South Australian on the pole. It just will be Noah Tara rather than Luke Rosella.
Yeah, that's right. So importantly, I mean, that was sort of a bit of a thing that we needed to take a bit of a look at here, because on the driver's standings, if you can see right here, we're actually looking at the 11 to 20. We'll go back to 1 to 10s for you. So you can see there, we keep the statistics rolling down the left-hand side of the graphic there. So in terms of pole positions, that was actually sewn up last year. So the CRE Electrical Pole Award goes to Will Devenish. Luke Rosella is in command of the fastest laps for the racing laps, and there's 2 more of them tonight to go, so he's potentially in the box seat there to take home the fastest lap award. And then the race wins, that's the big important one. Will Devenish and Luke Rosella tied on 11 wins apiece for the season, so there's a bit of pride at stake there as well. So when I was saying there's a few stats that need to be kept in the back of people's minds, they're the stats I was referring to.
Yeah, there are actually a few sort of trivia pub stats left to go. Maybe not ones that you would think to go, to have your big claim of fame for. But I mean, by all means, if as long as I suppose it's officially counted, it can be a stat that you can hang on the pool room wall at home. And definitely, most fastest laps don't earn you any points. There's an F1, but definitely still a bit of a claim to fame there. Whether it's through just raw pace or perhaps you've done the F1 thing and you're out of position, you thought, oh, you know what, wouldn't hurt. But it still shows that you've got the best control over your car or the best ability in your car in the session. And then obviously most poles, obviously those will go across to setting yourself up for a good run in the championship, and most race wins are the obviously the clear one that sets you up quite nicely for championship position.
There you go. So a little bit of a warm-up session just running at the moment. So we might actually just go over and have a quick sticky beak at some of the drivers are setting some laps. So this is the last opportunity before the next race that drivers can come out. Now traditionally, Rhodey, we do see a little bit of activity in these sessions, and it's mostly around drivers practicing the practice starts, the all-important starting procedure. And you can see here, it's about to take place again.
Yeah, and with a few drivers that are practicing their starts, and there'll be a little bit more to them than a previous. Taro obviously now starting on Polly's front row anyway, but he's got a fight now with, it was Will Devonish, so he's got a fight, an inter-team fight into the first corner. I don't remember actually what side Pole starts, and I can't remember actually whether Taro's going to have the advantage of being on the inside of turn 1 or not. I believe he does. I'll have to double check that. But yeah, so he's got a fight with Will Devonish, who has been historically not been great at starts, but this year he's really started to fix that. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Another one who was ahead of him in the queue at practicing a start as well was Bailey Hall, who, as we mentioned, really good pace, put himself into the top 10. He's starting a little bit higher than he's perhaps used to starting, so he's probably hoping to have a better start and a better first lap to really cement himself in that position. With where he's used to starting, he maybe doesn't have to put in as much effort on his first lap to sort of hold position, but yeah, starting in the top 10, there's a bit more to play for up there, and a few more heavy hitters in play.
You see Cheese there's pulled over to the side of the road there. I think he might be just waiting on a few drivers to go past maybe before he takes his position to try and do a practice start. But yeah, historically there's always been a good amount of on-track activity here in the practice sessions. There's not a lot of time though, that's the important thing. Only 5 minutes warm-up. And just a reminder that there is no second qualifying session tonight. Second race is determined from the finishing positions from race number 1. So 28 laps will be on the board. And well, we'll get into the permutations of the racing in the race, Rhodey, because there's definitely been a few questions I think have been circulating over the last couple of hours around how drivers are going to approach this with the hard tyre in play. Remember, it's the same for the development series drivers as it is for the Supercars drivers in terms of the tyre compounds. It's just that the racing is a little bit different. So the Supercars drivers have got 2 90-kilometre sprints. The drivers that took on the Adelaide Round 4 development series had a 39-lap single race. So the better part of 200 kilometres, or I think it was, or somewhere in that ballpark of the vicinity. I'll have to double check and do the distance math. But theirs was a little bit different, where they had no choice but to do some pit stops because they definitely needed to make the distance, whereas a few drivers have been talking about whether or not they actually can make it on a single tank of fuel and tyres. I mean, borderline. We'll get into the permutations of that with the math during the race itself. But I guess expect, if there's a safety car period, that there's probably going to be a flurry of activity in the lane.
Yeah, it's safety car period. There's probably going to be a flurry of activity. There's more than one, but the thing is, you don't know there's more than one. I'll flavor it to the race, but I've heard a few drivers refer to an option as doing the funny. But to be fair, doing the funny, but to be fair, it's a phrase from a couple of drivers that gets used any time you do something out of the ordinary. With what Brap's been using that phrase this week. Brap, a couple of guys, we've been playing a new co-op game called Lethal Company. I imagine a few people have played already. The funny in that case is there's a scrap item you can pick up from each of the planets you're on that is like a nuclear power cell for the entire building you're in. But you pull that out and all the lights go off, which is really annoying because the building is already half dark. And there's plenty of ledges and stuff, but also you bring the power source out and all the monsters in the building know that you've done it and they get a little bit more excited. Right. So quite often playing with Brap, I'll hear Brap go, "Hey, should I do the funny?" And then 5 seconds later, the lights have all gone off. Right. So that's obviously that's not what's going to happen in the race, but generally the word doing the funny means bringing something counter to the I suppose the appropriate strategy is a way of putting it. So we'll talk about that in the race and see if anybody goes for that and if the racing allows for that even to begin with. But yeah, don't want to give too much of the strategy away for those drivers who are thinking about doing it. For those who are listening now and hoping to get any last minute tips out of us and broadcasters about how to run their race.
And I thought I'd heard it all until you said doing the funny. I I turned 39 a couple of weeks ago, and I still get confused now as to where all these new terminologies come up from, Rody. I'm a bit lost now, so I guess I'm showing my age a little bit there. Not too much longer to go.
Yeah, I don't. That's not even an age thing. It's just people come out with new words. Like it's not even like a new. It's not like a lingo thing. Like I don't catch up on half the stuff that the what is it the phrase the Zoomers speak about nowadays. But yeah, that's just something that Brett came up with in the past. Well, probably came up with before that, but I've heard it in the past week, and I heard it again in reference to a strategy option for tonight.
All right, we'll take your word for it, but let's be interesting to see what sort of strategy unfolds tonight, because there's a few drivers been thinking about what exactly they are going to do when it comes to race trim. Well, the moment has arrived. Race number 28 of season 2023, not too far away here on the street circuits of Adelaide. It is, well, it was the final round last year, but it was also part of Enduro Cup last year. A little bit of a different situation this time around, where it's still the final round, but it's not an Enduro round, it is a solo driver round. There we have it, everybody lining up on the grid. So there you can see there the penalty applied from Luke Rosella, so he's going to start fourth out of this one. I'm glad Brendan Ross remembered about that one, because it had been quite some time since we had the last single driver round. So yes, and the hard part was it was a single driver offence, so it was a single driver penalty that needed to be applied. Nonetheless, grid is rolling, and for the second last time this year, Rody, you know what to do.
Absolutely. So starting from pole is Noah Turra for Amateur Racing by CRE. I don't think that's his first pole this year, but it's his first time in a little while. We're good to see him up the front. Alongside him is Brendan Ross, the first of the Real Holden Pixel Racing Team cars, obviously running for that team's championship, and he's got his team out not too far behind him. Between them, though, is Will Devonish, the 2023 Drivers' Champion, starting in the second row to try and help his team out in the team championship, the CRE Engineering, with Luke Rosella penalised back to fourth after setting that blazing lap to himself onto original pole. Fifth is Ryan Smith filling in at Mitchell Racing for Ben Hall. We hope he is watching along tonight if he can make it. Sixth is Wayne Walker in the JD Racing car. This is the first time that car's actually made the grid all year by virtue of how things have played out. But good to see Wayne on the grid tonight, with Bailey Hall in seventh, probably getting a bit of a nosebleed this high up, but good to see Beyond Racing Young Guns this far up the grid. Eighth is Leonard Gressel for PBF Huron and Cern Rennsport. Good to see him back tonight in sort of the unofficial home city, Adelaide being quite a bit of a home for the German population of Australia. Ninth is Brenton Foley for PBF Engineering, the first of those two cars tonight. Good to see him making it to the shootout. 10th is Curtis Ekmanis running the Mgarnis number 51 for CRE Engineering tonight. He's got a bit of work to do. Scott Murrell just missing out. The shootout starts from 11th, filling in for Daniel Cox for CRE Anson Motorsport, with Dane Liccardo in 12th for CRE Performance Racing, the last time he's running that Network Engineering car this year. 13th is Bratt filling in for Zach Brown at PBF Race Engineering. Good to see Bratt out on the grid again, with Lewis Weddington from the pit lane in 14th, filling for Hans Brunswick for the Food Safety dealer team. 15th is NZ Snipes from Beyond Racing Team Tanafer. Good to see him out on the grid as well, with Pete Thrower starting from 16th for Beyond Racing, just a single car for them tonight. 17th is Lockie Lock for Am. Racing by CRE. He's got a bit of work to do to get back to where he normally runs, with Nathan Higginson in 18th, the second of the Beyond Racing Young Gun cars. 19th is Cam Rutledge, CRE Anson Motorsport, with a bit of work to do as well. And starting off the back is Cheese, the second of the Beyond Racing Team Tanafer cars.
Thank you, Rody. That is your grid for race number 1 tonight. 28 laps on the board, and if you want a great Supercars race, just add concrete around a racetrack. Supercars is go in Adelaide. 3, 2, 1, off we go. And the start was missed by Noah Turra. He completely missed the jump, and it's handed the ascendancy already to Brendan Ross, who shoots through from the front row to pole position, with Devonish going through to second and leaving Noah Turra to fend off the advances of Luke Rosella for third. Looks like there's already a car in the fence in the back of shot. I believe that's Scott Murrell in the Envoy Supercar. Yes, it is. He's hit the fence already, lost the bonnet on the number 94, falls to the back of the queue, and Lewis Wedding leaving the lane, I believe, in the next few seconds.
There is some big straps going on here as well. Turra was under threat for a second there from Rosella. He's going to come under threat probably in a little bit as well, but Ryan Smith trying to buy in there, currently running in 5th. Leonard Grossel back there as well. Curtis Ekmanis already made up a few spots up into 7th. passing Foley and Hall. But yeah, a lot of energy at the start of this race.
Absolutely. Oh, Tara got the wall on the first lap here at turn number 8, and down the inside, Rosella was having a bit of a look, out braking themselves. Both the Mustangs going a bit too deep in the braking zone there, heading up to turn number 8 and 9, and well, Rosella got one of them. He didn't get the other one in Devonish, but he does gain a spot, so he worried the pole sitter out of the position. That was the important piece there. So Rosella up a spot at turn number 8. Ryan Smith doing a very nice job here, holding on to the back of Noah Tara. Started 5th, is currently 5th on the road, and holding up Leonard Grossel as well, with Igmanis having moved his way up to 7th place after starting 10th.
Yeah, Smithy's one of a few names floating around for a potential Supercars drive next year with CRE. Big wobble, with SES, big wobble over that turn 1 curve. Very lucky not to lose it into the wall outright, but very much opened the door for Leonard Grossel there in the background. Not got an opportunity he's taken it on just yet. Grossel's actually got a bit of room back to Igmano, so he can really sort of pick his moment here. Doesn't have to try and hurry through the way that we saw the lead cars do a lap prior. But yeah, doing a really good job, Ryan Smith, coming out of a podium finish in Dev Series the week prior.
Absolutely. A little bit of a replay time. We're going to have a look at what happened to Scott Murrell in the back of the shot at the start here. So he started 11th. He was buried in the back of the midfield. Here he is. There's on the left-hand, right side of his shot there. Did he do this all on his own, or was he helped? Looks like he just had a little bit of a moment there, exiting turn number 2, and then ended up in the fence. Didn't look like he was involved in another car.
Ross, something's happened to Ross. He's dropped to 6th place.
Well, that is interesting. So Brendan Ross, down the order, has possibly made a mistake in the last couple of moments, or
he was leading coming into the hairpin, so something's happened to the hairpin.
So that was a little while ago then, if that's the case.
Yeah, I just went back and replay it. Look, he's just gone a little bit. Oh, actually, that would be awkward. He's just gone a little bit wide on the curb and had to try to have a 3 wide moment out of the corner. He's actually been tapped slightly by Devonish, who I think maybe didn't have too much an option where to go, but. Yeah, what that has meant for the moment is Ross is out of the podium position. He's currently fighting with Grossel and Igmanis over 6th.
Yeah, I was about to say, who's behind him on the road at the moment. It's the man that is very, very crucial in that team's battle for Brendan Ross. So he doesn't want to be seeing the number 51 Mustang in his rearview mirrors too much at the moment. He wants to get out of Dodge and get out of Dodge fast.
Absolutely.
That does reveal Luke Rosella back into the lead of the race, so he has managed to get past Will Devonish and all of that, and is checking out as best as he can at the front of the field. So already got about nearly a second in hand, probably be close to a second by the time we get to the sector marker here. It's 1.3 in fact, 1.3 seconds with the 2 3/4 laps completed.
Yeah, so this is the point where we're probably going to start series. I'll check out. It'll be interesting to see from here what the strategy play is. We talked, safety car. One safety car is going to definitely probably decide where the pit occurs. Cars will do about 24 laps on a full tank with the tyres they're running. Fastest lap there for Rosella as well into the bargain. But yeah, the cars will do 24 laps in a stint. The race is 28 laps. So about now, end of this lap, is when you could start to pit and make it home from here. But I imagine a few drivers are probably planning on a safety car. If so, they'll pit now. Yeah,
that's right. So you can see here as we watch Licato's moved up 5 spots at the beginning of the race. Let's actually have a look at the DCD race facts for the last time this year. So when I had a look at the stats during the week, and I had a look at what people's fuel burn was, I got the impression that some people were trying to see how far they could stretch that tank of fuel, right? So I came up with a figure around 4.1 to 4.4. So based on that sort of logic, you could get very, very close to a full tank of fuel. It would take a hell of an effort to make it happen, but honestly, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's worth the risk, because the tyres are going to be absolute toast by the time you get to about lap 15, 16. So you're going to want to put some new rubber on anyway. But that's the logic there. So hard tyre in play, 28 laps and an optional pit stop. Well, you do the math.
Absolutely. I was just going back and having a look. I saw that Higginson's dropped already. Unfortunately, a bit of a spray through the first chicane left him into the tyre wall, the wall on the outside turn 3 with
and there's been a moment.
Damage.
There's been a moment.
The tyre.
So
Higginson's out already.
And there's been a moment here too for Igmanis. He's dropped well and truly out of contention as well. He's right down the bottom of the order now, back to 17th. I don't quite understand what sort of happened there for him. Keen to have a look at what's happened on the replay there. By the time I've actually gone back to the replay, he's already he's already 17th, so he's had some sort of a moment
I'll
somewhere.
go back and have a look.
All right, so Roddy will go back and check that one out. We've missed that one in all of our discussions at the moment. So at the moment, he is trying his best to get back past Cheese in the Team Tanifer Mustang, which he's just done. And wow, the big swings and roundabouts this team's championship. We're going to be very, very heavily on the points at the moment, trying to figure out who sits where and what the current permutations are. We'll have to update you on that after race number 1.
Yeah,
so all the results.
Having a look at it, it looks like Igmanus was up behind Ross in the queue. Braked about the regular point for the hairpin down at turn 9, but just the car refused to stop, probably perhaps a bit of slipstream or what it was, I'm not entirely sure, but the practical outcome was that he was deep at turn 9, had to wait a long time for a spot in the queue.
Well, there you have it.
That'll be why he's down. He has picked up a spot or two since then. He was through Murrell fairly quickly, and then he's just recently passed Cheese as well, so his next target is Cam Rutledge. A
safety car now to have any hope of sort of catching up the back of the field. So Bailey Hall, who gained a couple of spots in the shootout there, has lost a couple at the start. And the man behind him, Wayne Walker, he actually has lost a handful of spots as well. He was in the mid-pack of the top 10 shootout and currently lies 10th on the road. I'm wondering if he's just sort of trying to feel his way into some of these things here. Now they're starting to come up on the back of Foley and Liccardo too. They've started catching them at a little bit of a rate of knots, so I'm wondering if Liccardo's having a moment. Well, Bailey Hall just had a moment exiting 5. Have a look at that down the inside of turn number 6 in a flash was car number 98. No questions asked whatsoever for Wayne Walker. Very, very authoritative pass. Now, this is the problem. Down here at turn number 8, you've got to have a bit of common sense, and Bailey Hall thankfully has the common sense to pull out of the move and not risk a major incident at turn number 8. And locked brake and check. Very close to controlling the slide there. Unfortunately for Walker, has collected the tyre wall, not too heavily, but just enough. And Hall makes sure he redresses that position and lets them through. So that was getting a little bit interesting for a moment. I think Hall was just a little bit too late on the brakes and gave the number 98 Mustang just the closest of nudges and just upset Walker in the braking zone. But it's a good battle. That's definitely a good little exchange there between the two of them.
Absolutely, it could have been a potential there for Hall, perhaps trying to get in there that last turn 8, trying to perhaps worry the rookie out of things. But Walker's a rookie only in terms of ASR, as you mentioned. Multi-time champion on RF2, so he knows what he's doing at Adelaide. He knows what he's doing in a supercar. That's a little bit of a wide there. Actually grabbed the tyre bundle as well out of at the start of the staircase. So he's back now behind Hall. What this crucially does, aside of bringing them back into this train that we're seeing behind them now of Brapp, Snipes, and I think Pete Thrower is not too far back of this as well. It crucially gives Dane and Foley a chance to breathe a little bit, because they were in their own little squabble, and about the time these guys caught them the last lap through the staircase, there was a bit of front-rear contact that I think nearly put Liccardo into a half spin, so those guys are already in their own little battle. It's quite exciting enough with 2 cars. I don't really think they need another 3 or 4 cars coming into it, but the way these guys are going behind, they're going to have visitors soon.
They will have visitors fairly soon. Well, they were getting visitors in the form of Hall and Walker before that little skirmish at turn number 8. And the important thing is, let's have a look at the lap times. So last time around, Liccardo and Foley were 21.2 and 21.5, and Hall and Walker were in the 24s and 22s, but they, of course, were in a bit of a different situation. And the cars behind them, they were sort of a bit all over the shop. They were in the 21s, a few in the 23s.
Back on again with Walker and Hall coming out of turn 1 now.
This is getting to be a fun little exchange here. Walker has got to give a bit of room to Hall here up the inside, so they'll both burn a track cut, probably going through turn number 1 and 2 there. And this is getting willing. And now Foley's going to buy into this battle. He can't make it 3 wide in turn 4. Brapp, not Foley. Yeah.
As well.
About to say, you can't be very, very late and long and hard about making that 3 wide into 4. But yeah, this is starting to become a very, very interesting little truly train headed by Bailey Hall.
Yeah, it's interesting how it plays out that Brapp, despite being the only Super 2 driver in this, well, it's now a 4-car train actually, the only current Super 2 driver in this train, he's actually the most experienced of the 3 cars, two ahead of him and him included. He's been racing for a couple of seasons. Hall, we made mention he appeared last year, and Walker, it's his first race in ASR, and Hall actually thrown it a little bit deep and a little bit wide, trying to get something on with Walker again.
And then behind them as well, Snipes was down the inside of Brapp. at the hairpin as well, but he couldn't quite make that one stick. So Brapp's managed to get the Kiwi in the 747 in the the 422 Mustang back there, and Peter Thrower is just menacingly giving his fellow countrymen something to think about. Oh, Brapp dives for the pits. That's interesting. So first man to blink.
Yeah, that's early. I mean, if we did say you go to 24, and I wouldn't expect people to go that far. Actually, I just noticed Murrell's retired as well in the last little bit, so that's another car out. But yeah, Brapp was one I was talking about. The funny being the no-stop safety car, one tank run. But perhaps with his prediction of where the race is going, he doesn't see that happening. It looks like perhaps something happened to Marnus, or Marnus might have been through the lane as well at some point. Rutledge. Rutledge is still behind. It's still behind Brapp on track, and actually crucially behind Wedding, who started from the pit lane.
He actually went down the escape road at turn 7. I was keeping an eye on him as well. So Rutledge was in there.
So Rutledge is pitting now as well. So that's the second car in the lane.
Yeah, so that's cruelled his run as well, going down the escape road at 7, with Brapp back out on the circuit now. So that gives Bailey Hall and the others that were in that group a little bit of a free kick there as well. So Brapp in the lane, 2 Beyond Racing Mustangs, one from one side of the garage, one from the stable next door in 11th and 12th, and then behind them Lock and Egg Marnus, who's on that recovery drive. So surprisingly, with everything that's gone on so far, everybody that is still running, there's only one car that is a lap down. It's unfortunately Cam Rutledge.
Smith and Grossel. Smith just rolled it at the first chicane.
Oh, there's major damage there as well. Oh, Liccardo's done the same. There's a lot of carnage going on here at turn number 1. That probably should be triggering a safety car, I would have thought. There's a lot of issues there.
Rolled on their roof. Ryan's out. Actually, Liccardo out as well. I think both with engine. I think Foley was tangled up in the second one with Igmar as well, because he was sideways through 3 as well.
Yep, safety car called, rightfully so. There's damage and debris that's got to be picked up there at turn number 3. That was quite nasty. So Smith and Liccardo in all of that. That's going to curtail the running in the field. So that's not something we would have expected to see. Drama unfolding here. Now, if you're Luke Rosella and Will Devonish, what do? You got margin. You're going to come into the lane and sort it out. If you're Luke Rosella, you do. You got no choice. I think you've got to take the bait here while the bait's there. Everybody's going to be in the same boat. So pit lane's going to be a very, very busy place in just a few seconds' time.
Okay.
Noah Turra doesn't take the bait. Okay, so that's a differing approach on the strategy there. So Turra goes through to lead this race. Rosella and Devonish both come in for a stop. So too Brennan Ross. Oh, there's the double stack's going to be in play here as well. Ross can't get in. And Devonish can't get out. And he just pushes his way. Will Devonish just pushes his way out of the lane. So I don't know how that's going to go down in race control. That will certainly be an interesting discussion, because Ross couldn't get into the pit box and pretty much cut off all opportunities for Devonish to get out.
Yeah, it's something else in the midst of all the exciting content there. But yeah, the other thing as well, and unfortunately, Reese, I see you in the chat. That was Dane done for still. But the other thing as well that I went back and I looked at the replay for Smith and Liccardo. Smith was just way too much of the turn 1 tyre bundle, picked up and threw it over onto the roof. The weird thing for Liccardo, he took a regular line through 1 for a fraction of a second, and I'd have to go back post-race and check this in the service side replay. For a fraction of a second, Ryan's car was not where it was supposed to be, was parked right after the turn 1 curb, freeze-framed as it was rolling. And so Liccardo's come over that turn 1 curb, got a little bit of air, bounced off the wheel of that 1 pixel stationary or 1 frame stationary car of Smith, and then rolled his car.
Well, here's the replay. Let's have a look. So Ryan Smith and Leonard Grossel nose to tail across the start-finish line. So this is the first accident that you were talking about, Roddy. So, oh yeah, bit off way too much that he could chew there, and then he was done. And then look in the back of shot. You're looking for Liccardo. Oh yeah, and you're right. There was something that wasn't quite right there. Liccardo completely unsighted, and something happened. So you can see here, at this point here on the replay, Ryan Smith is already through the shot, and then Liccardo arrives on the scene, and then for some weird reason, there's a car already there. So something has gone absolutely horrendously bad within the game. And
Dane's just confirmed that in the live chat, it was at his end as well, but Ryan Smith's car popped into existence and killed his car. So that's a really, really weird one. I'm going to guess perhaps the game just made me confused because you don't normally have cars on their roofs in racing. Also, just there's another car out as well. I'm going to go figure out what happened there because Thrower's out under safety car, so I'm not sure what's happened there, whether a strategy call or something else has gone wrong.
I think it
double
might
check.
be a game issue. He got a drive-through penalty for some weird reason.
He got a drive-through, but also up behind Ross coming back to the train, just ran completely wide. I'm guessing brake failure or something through the fourth last corner, strainedly beyond electrical tie barriers, and I imagine engine went pop.
Yeah.
So costly costly last couple of laps for quite a few competitors on this wheel. We've seen 3 cars out.
And the lucky dog's just gone through to Cam Rutledge as well, so he's a very, very lucky boy. He'll get his lap back, so he'll get onto the back of the field. So he's just got to get on with it now. He is currently the last classified runner. It says 16th on the timing screens, but he will be 15th when himself and Cheese move up past Peter Thrower in the next few seconds or so. So, wow. I did say at the beginning of the race, you want a Supercars race, just add concrete, and that's what happens. We've had 5 retirements out of the 20 cars in the field after just 10 laps, so that is a massive surprise. I didn't expect that sort of rate of attrition. Now, a few guys in the chat have actually kept a mention here about Brapp, so this has played perfectly into his hands. He is 5th out of all of this. So the early pit stop, what a gamble. What an absolute gamble to come in under green, safety car called, don't have to stop again now, can save as much as he wants under safety car, and he's in the box seat for a very nice top 10 finish as it sits right now.
Quite potentially. The only flip side is a lot of the guys behind him, I think most guys will have been through the lane, so he's now potentially going to deal with guys with slightly fresher tyre compounds on him, but with a hard tyre, that doesn't really mean a whole lot. But no, Specky's mentioned that him and Brapp talked about strats coming into this race, and yeah, absolutely, it was a roll of the dice. And I was thinking as soon as he pitted, this could be the way it plays out. But with how far he was off the queue, I was worried. But with everything else that played out, combined with a couple of the incidents with the cars in front of him as well, it's put him up to 5th. The other thing I was going to say with those 2 retirements, or the 2 retirements before Pete's, is it knocked out a couple of really interesting battles that we were watching, obviously. Ricardo was battling with Foley, who's currently now down in 13th result of pitting. And, Ricardo was with Foley. Smith was battling with Grossel.
Yeah, so they were up currently 5th and 6th, yeah.
So a couple of battles that we've seen lost from this train. Another battle that we now got to keep an eye on, that at least from what we saw previously outside of where Brapp gets himself involved in the second half of this race, is Walker and Hall, who are still currently line astern in the field. So they'll potentially, I'm not sure if anyone has pitted or not based on some of these orders that I'm seeing. Foley definitely has pitted, he's down off the back of the train. But I'm not sure if the guys in front have pitted quite yet, so perhaps we might still have some pit stops yet to go. But we will see when this race goes green, and I would expect, looks like potentially we're seeing a little bit of check up in front of the field. We might be going green this lap. I'm not entirely sure. I'm
having a look. Now, the slowdown point is supposed to be out of turn 11. That's how it was meant to
going green
unfold. So we're going green this lap. So I've left it a little bit late. So that's the important bit to be there. So there are a couple of penalties, I think, that need to be removed here because a few drivers out of position at the restart, but that's because the game has told them to do what the game tells them to do, and Devenish leads them to the line. So he wasn't leading it when the race went yellow, but he's leading now.
Absolutely. I've just had a look. I'm going to have to go. Oh, geez. Turo is nearly rolling off of their first corner curb as well off the restart. But Devenish to the lead at that start with Luke Rosella chasing him down, and Ross now defending from Noah Turo. So not too different from the actual race start.
No, definitely not too different at all there as well. So for the moment, all settling down, everybody caught back up, keeping an eye on this battle out in front because that is the one that is going to be on for the race honours, and I think it's only a matter of time before Rosella sneaks past.
He's looking up now down at turn 8. There's obviously a little bit of respect from the guys further back at turn 8, and we mentioned the common sense, but there's no hard rule about where you place your car at turn 8 anymore. It is just down to common sense. A little bit of a dive, but that said, he was quite a bit tighter under brakes than Devenish. Devenish dropping a spot there now, and a little bit of a slide off the corner as well, but he is comfortably positioned Tara's actually now got a bit of a logjam form behind him with Ross and Brap the next in the queue, with Russell not far behind.
Now, the important bit for Noah Tara is I'm not 100% sure if he actually came in for a pit stop or not, because he did go round when the likes of Devonish and Rosella were in the lane. So just having a little bit of a look to see if he did or if he didn't, and he possibly may have come in for a stop after all that was over and done with. So he might have been a little bit lucky. So where he is at the moment in the queue in third, he might have pulled a bit of a masterstroke here to stay ahead of Brendan Ross and gone a good strategy route. Not going to probably challenge the top two, I would say, at this rate, but definitely in the box seat for a solid podium spot right now. And he could be a bit of a hindrance to Brendan Ross. That's the important bit, I think, that we need to factor in here. It's not a team car in the same fact that it's a CRE engineering, but it is a satellite sister team here. And if he can hold up Brendan Ross for a little bit longer and give Egmanis a bit more time to get through the pack, that's going to be useful from a points perspective at the end of the night. It won't, at the moment as it sits right now, it's not going to be enough for them to close any more of the margin down in this race, but at least it keeps them in the game for the second race this evening. Still keeps the title fight going at least for another 28 or so laps this evening after this is over. And Egmanis is just picking up another spot there down the inside of Snipes, it looks like there, who rubbed the wall. Actually, in fact, he coughed up a couple of spots there. He's coughed up a few spots, so been on the rough end of the stick there. Egmanis, he was up to 10th and dropped a bunch of spots in that one, I think maybe because he had to check up and get out of the way. So we might have a look at that, because it was off our broadcast cameras just for a split second. The onboard will reveal all here from Egmanis' point of view. So there's Snipes hitting the wall. Oh yeah, he had to check up and get well out of the way to avoid the other Mustang, and look at them all. He just got freight trained after that. 1, 2, and there goes Foley, 3.
Yeah, just come back to the live for that actually. Snipes grabbed the wall out of, what is that, turn 4, turn 5, the start of the staircase. Grabbed the tyre bundle and actually lost 2 spots. Right in front of Wedding, got sideways and actually on her Wedding as a result. But I was going to say, even before that, very willing little battle here over the back end of the top 10. It's fractured out a little bit now. Locke now comfortably clear of Foley with Wedding in 11th. But yeah, there's a lot of very, very willing racing there.
Certainly is. Foley has now gone to the head of this little group as Lock's starting to just kick away here. And Cheese has lost a lap in all of this. I'm wondering whether he came in for a pit stop that was out of sequence and he's dropped to the back of the field, because Cam Rutledge got the lucky dog, and I thought Cheese was already ahead of Rutledge before the lucky dog was served by Rutledge. So I think Cheese may have come in or made a mistake, and he's now gone a lap down in proceedings here.
No, I'm just checking that he picked up a drive-through off the start. Rather than already positioned, he lost his lap, so I'm just fixing that.
Oh, you're fixing that now. Okay, thank you, Rody. Yep, so that's something that, the penalties had been cleared, but obviously something not quite right in that situation. So here we go. Leonard Grossel in 5th place at the moment. Brap now demoted to 6th, so that is a change since the green flag dropped for the resumption of racing. Now Brap's got his hands full with Wayne Walker, and Bailey Hall since following right in the wheel tracks of the Shell V-Power Mustang heading down at the moment. So might not be just a case of one getting by Brap, potentially could be a case of 2 cars getting by Brap if Bailey Hall can go with them. So here we go, committed through turn number 8. Good pace from both drivers. How's Walker on the brakes? Is he looking for the move here? And Brap's gone well deep there as well, and just cuts the nose off Bailey Hall there with a little bit of contact coming through turn number 8. So Walker through. Bailey Hall not quite close enough to fill the wedge and move his car up another spot as well. So Brap down to 7th with Hall not too far away in 8th place. So it's getting tight. Oh, some contact there as well.
Contact there, yeah.
Bit of contact between the final corner.
It's like we mentioned, and Speaky's mentioned in the chat that Brap gets to the end tyres on these for sure, but like the usable window or the healthy window of the tyres can be a little bit shorter for Brap off this restart. And I think we're kind of seeing that perhaps the way the setup behaves as well. We know the PBF setups tend to be a little bit taily, especially off the corners. That perhaps what we're seeing there as well. But yeah, just perhaps maybe opening the door a little bit for Walker. Obviously, as I said, rookie here, but names earned around the traps. He perhaps figured that Walker perhaps wasn't his kind of a fight, but Hall's, fresh last year out of Super 2, historically been a little further back than what we're currently seeing, probably about the pace we've seen Brap in a lot of his wild cards this year. So he probably figures, this is probably a fairer fight to go for. And unfortunately for Hall was just a bit too close there as Brap was running it a little bit, not running it wide, but getting a bit of a slide out of the final corner and was caught up behind him.
Walker's already caught up to the back of Grossel pretty quickly as well too. There's only a half a second difference between the 666 Commodore and the 98 Mustang. There's not too much in between these two. And this will be an interesting fight for the remainder of the race. Only 10 laps to go, so it's gone pretty quick despite the safety car intervention halfway through. Has sort of put a little bit of a dampener on this race with 5 drivers out, 2 of them from that incident. And now Brap just behind these two, now having to start to get a little bit busy with Bailey Hall. So Hall had some overlap coming out of the final corner. They both really bounced across the curb at turn number 2. And Brap will hold on for the moment. Lock not gaining too much ground on these two. I think this might be one of those circuits I think that Lockie Lock probably isn't the biggest fan of, but just, I guess, plodding along and trying to make the best of a situation that he's got. He's up 8 spots, but by virtue of the fact that several of the drivers that were in front of him at the start of the race are now out.
That was definitely a plan to as well, but, finish first you must finish, and those sort of adages as well. He's done a good job pulling himself back up through the field. He's actually ahead of Wedding as well. Another driver who's done a good job pulling himself up through the field. He qualified. Wasn't great, but he qualified okay. Starting from the pit lane, though, extra penalty on top of that as well. And he actually caught up with the train, or the back half of the train, before the safety car even came out. So that and a good strategy call has put him where he's needed to be, crucially as well for Wedding. And an opportunity that he hasn't had the rest of the year. Outside of perhaps 1 or 2 enduro appearances, he gets a pit room for himself with the second Fuchs HSV dealer team currently here tonight. So he didn't have the issues of the sort of the main Pixel cars or the CRE cars, potentially for that matter, where he had to share the boom. Hall's now up on the inside again of Brap, but not quite getting the run. So slightly better cornering from Hall, slightly better acceleration out of Brap.
Yeah, that's the difference, I think, isn't it? Brap squaring the car off a little bit nicer and a bit cleaner, getting good traction to the road, where Hall's having to wait that little bit longer. So, yeah, a bit more mid-corner pace from the number 38. Oh, Brap's a bit late.
Yellow.
Oh, Grossel. Yeah, it was a yellow because Grossel was almost down the escape road, and there's a drive-through penalty issued for Snipes, something for track infringements. And Brap, I'm not sure, has he got damage?
I suspect it potentially, I'll see in the next corner, I suspect potentially, I'd have to say a puncture.
Yeah, something's not quite right. There's a few drivers have moved up because Leonard Grossel was the one that they all came across, and he was almost down the escape road at turn number 4. So and he's just managed to get back out ahead of Bailey Hall after all of that. So I want to have a look at what happened to Grossel and all of that, because he was the cause of the yellow. So here we go on the replay. So being pursued by Walker and lock brake in a braking zone, that feeds him wide. Did really well to pulled the handbrake, I reckon, came back on. Then Brap went into the wall. He got surprised by what was going on, and Hall slipped through. I mean, Hall really didn't have much of a choice there. Yellow flag was out. There wasn't anything he could do about it. And yeah, I'm wondering whether Brap's come off worse for wear out of everybody after that little issue at turn 4.
Yeah, he's continuing around, so I think he's good now. I think it was just a thing where he was perhaps riding that much of a high with where he was at, riding really comfortably, but knew there was perhaps not too much of a margin or too much wiggle room within that sort of pace he was running. Basically, he was ahead of a train, and as soon as he got pushed out of ahead of the train, more by his own doing than anything else, obviously, but as soon as he was out ahead of the train, he needed to get himself back acclimatized again. It's another yellow through here, actually. It was Lockie Lock's down the escape road now. Yeah,
locked down the escape road. I can see him at turn number 4, so he saw himself out, and actually Grossel's hit the wall again. He's had another issue, just keep an eye on it there at turn number 6, and I just realised I put the replay graphic up without actually showing the replay. It's been a bit of a long season, and I'm still yet to fix this issue with the A10 Mini, where 2 is 1 and 1 is 2 in terms of cameras. That's an off-season job.
But to finish up with what I was making with Brap, I think once he was out of the head of the queue, he needed to really get himself back into clean air to acclimatise himself. Wedding going for a 2-for-1 move at the hairpin, didn't quite play off, but he's now through on Hall.
Yeah, he's through on one of them. I guess, Rody, you can, offer your opinion on this one. The Fuchs HSP dealer team, This has probably been, I guess, a little bit of a disappointing year in terms of attendances for those guys. We know that Lockie Burke's had his real-life karting commitments, which of course does always tend to be the case, and we knew that was going to be the case, but it's been a matter of Wedding filling in for Brunswick, and he's just sort of vanished a little bit, I think, in the back half of the season. I think last time we saw him was Bathurst, and I think that might have been it.
I think realistically, I haven't been fully across the real life happenings of One Hans Brunswick throughout this year, but I know that there's been a move at one point. He was out at about past Dandenong Way, not far from where yourself and a few of the other admins are, but he's since moved to a place closer to the city, which I imagine comes down to where his work. He is trained in the legal profession. He does work in a legal capacity. He's not quite swinging the hammer as a judge, or is he making big closing statements in a courtroom? But he's still part of the legal proceedings of Victoria, somewhere along the line. So I think probably partially just a work thing for him, but I think a lot of it is he's come home from a day at work and just not had the energy to jump on the sim. Like, we know he's got the pace as Wedding goes very deep trying to get a move on Grossel. He's going to have a second stab at that cherry a little later. But he's for Brunswick. I think it's just been he's just not had the energy coming home from work, and for Brunswick, for Burke, priority being the real life racing commitments has meant that he's not been able to do too much. But it made sense in that aspect putting the pair of them in the one team, because it meant that they weren't trying to. It wasn't a situation where one driver was trying to go for a team championship and the other driver just wasn't there for it. They're at least both on a level pegging when it comes to their expectations for the season.
Yeah, that's right. I guess if you put it into that perspective, you've probably pinned the nail on the head there. So Wedding making the mistake there at turn number 9, but Grossel did go defensive super early out of turn number 8, and this is a very willing little battle between these two at the moment.
Yeah, Wedding just appears a lot stronger on the brakes at this point. The way he gained coming into the start of the staircase there on Grossel, he gained 2 car lengths in the braking zone. He's a lot stronger on the brakes than Grossel. Grossel, perhaps, I don't know, he will have been in the pits by now. I would have thought, I think everyone's fitted by now. If not, they're going to be in the next lap, because they're going to have to be. But either setup direction or what it is for Grossel, as I mentioned, very much coming into it with not quite full prep window available. He's coming off the back of a sickness. I remember what it was, I just don't remember the name for it, but some sort of bacterial problem.
Yeah, there we go. And then the outside,
Wedding through, but Grossel's not quite giving it up just yet. A bit of current of the wall in the background as well. I think haul into the wall.
Yep, haul into the wall in the background, and great job by Wedding. Got it done the second time around of asking, went the long way, left some space on the inside of the apex for Grossel, and managed to get the move done. So it didn't quite come off the last lap, but it has come off this lap. The car just looks a little bit more pointed, looks a little bit more better on the turn-in, and I guess that's giving Lewis some confidence in the front end, so it's giving him some confidence not only in the turn-in but the brakes as well, and he's just able to make that car dance a little bit nicer than Grossel, whose car looks fairly, I guess, neutral, and just trying to plot it away to the finish here. So the other part of the equation is what's going on up front. So Rosella well and truly out in front. Devonish behind him. Noah Tara's just in behind his teammate at the moment. Also not teammate, stablemate, as there's another penalty flashes up for NZ Snipes. That'll be again for a track limits infringement at some point. Ross is not doing anything too silly, so he's just staying happily in 4th, but he's being caught by Wayne Walker at the moment. Walker's actually about a 10th or a second or so faster a lap at the moment, and that margin has come down in the last couple of laps. Let's get a read on the lap times this time around. Fastest lap of the race, incidentally, is Luke Rosella, 1:18.5, so comfortably clear of anybody else. Ross with a 21.4, and Walker a 21.1, so getting close. Walker could be a little bit of a thorn in Rosella's side if he can manage to, in Ross's side, if he can get up here and make another position and make the team's points rather interesting going into the final race. Now the important part here is Egmanis. He needs this position over Foley, and then the next position for him is Grossel, who's a good couple of seconds up the road. He's had a massively up and down race, right? He's been up the top, then he's been down the back, then he's had to fight his way through, then he went down the back again. I'd be keen to get his feedback after the night's over on where those mistakes have come from, because they've crept in over the second half of the season, and on top of the Pixel team, really starting to pile the pressure on points-wise. This is where the Achilles heel has been. I don't mean it with any disrespect, but with Devonish sort of up the pointy end, the Sandown round, of course, hurt both of them badly. But it's the penalties that have gone on with, the self-inflicted penalties that have gone on with Egmanis, and the poor results that have gone along with it that have sort of helped erode that, let that gap erode.
Yeah, the important thing for Tomo is he has still been the best performing CRA driver after Will Devonish. So he was the best. There was no better fit. Obviously, it's going to take a bit of a dent with how Tara, especially, is doing on pace tonight. But Tara's missed more rounds than Egmanis. So still was the best pairing, Will and Tomo together for the point of the team standings. And look, there's still a race yet to go. There's still other permutations come out. The important thing as well, we can say that it being the point to announce that the results as they stand in terms of teams and drivers' championships for Super 2, Super 3 are finalised, with the only incident coming in being one that won't affect them. But the other thing to keep in mind as well, there's still definitely, with how close they are in teams, there's still the permutation that something that Ross or Rosella have done at any point tonight could come up and bite them on the butt. And there is still race 2 to go as well, which is I usually want to factor in because it feels like we're getting to the end of the night already. We're still another race set to go after this, but yeah, that's something to factor in as well as the thinking goes. But yeah, it's a little bit scripting in there, maybe a little bit of pressure, a little bit of the fluctuation on pace. But it's one of those things I think they're not going to. It's one of those things I think if Tomo had the answers for it, they wouldn't happen in the first place. Yeah. It's something that you might sit down and probably have a look at either as a team or as himself over the off season. And like Tomo, we know Tomo has the pace to be there. It's maybe just quite the consistency that's taken a bit of a knock this season.
Yeah, I think so. This is the closest battle on track 2, by the way, Foley and Egmanis, and then the next one is Ross and Walker. Ross and Walker are actually starting to get a bit closer again, but I think Ross is starting to respond here and try to stabilise the margin with just better part of 2 laps to go. And you're right, Rhodey, that was you mentioned it a few seconds ago about the series results coming out of the Adelaide round for the development series. I was shocked when I read the stewards report and there was 1 incident reported. I was certainly expecting there to be a lot more. Nothing has been lodged apart from one self-report, I should say. So I just want to say good on Matt Cecil for actually lodging that as a self-report. He actually had a brake failure of some nature where the braking didn't work for him, or his pedals disconnected going down to the hairpin at turn number 9. And it doesn't matter, at the end of the day, you're responsible for the sim gear, making sure it's all working. He's put his hand up and said, yeah, look, I ran into somebody and I caused a problem. So that situation aside, it's not going to change the impact of Super 2 and Super 3 teams and drivers standing. So once that stewards result has been sorted and addressed, all results will be considered final. And Egmanis, well, that's the final nail in his coffin for this race. I think he's not going to get that spot off of Foley. He's just had a moment at exiting turn 11, and unfortunately for him, a very difficult race has just finished in a very difficult moment. Here it is on the Outlaw Broadcasting replay. Pursuing Foley into turn number 11 here, inside curb, picked it up, gassed it too early, and that's the end of that.
Absolutely, yes. Putting him out of the picture really for this race. It was we now have started the final lap, and somewhere up the road from him is the race leader who's come up to the final corner now. He's got just 1 car for company, and that's Bailey Hall, who's now 2 laps down. A bit of a horror story for Hall is what we talk about after we've gotten the cars across the line, but it is Luke Rosella to take his, I can't remember the track of the wins, but it's the first win out of Adelaide.
Yep, first win for tonight, so 12 wins on the season for Luke Rosella now, so breaks that deadlock with Will Devonish, so still a race to go, but if that performance is anything to go by, then that will he'll win the next one as well. But we'll wait and see how that unfolds. Devonish home for 2nd, so valuable teams points there for CRE Engineering. Noah Tara home in 3rd. Brendan Ross 4th. He holds off Wayne Walker at the end of the day there for 5th place, so that's a good job for Walker. Wedding from the back of the grid, and effectively because he started in the pit lane, safety car fell his way. What a result for him. 6th place finish. Big smile like a Cheshire cat, I think, right now for Lewis Wedding. Do you say, Rhodey?
I think there's probably some little bits that he'd pick apart with his own race, but I think all things considered, he's on a pretty good run.
Yeah, I think so too. Leonard Grossel 7th, Brent Foley 8th. Igmanis manages to hold off NZ Snipes there for 9th. And actually, NZ Snipes, I think, might have actually been, I think he might have been a bit too far out, sorry, because I was just looking, he had some penalties in there and he just came across Igmanis at the wrong time. And Locke managed to get home for 10th, so he gets home there. Brapp unfortunately fell out of that top 5 position down to 11th, so he had the tyres to get it home, but the drivers behind him had about 3 laps or so fresher rubber, so that's made all the difference there. Ahead of Rutledge, Cheese, Snipes and Bailey Hall. Geez, didn't he fall out of favour there? Bailey Hall, we can see he's missing a bonnet there as well, so he's had a moment somewhere, and after being well and truly entrenched in the top 10, Hall unfortunately suffers a non-finish. Sorry, not non-finish, a rather interesting finish to his race.
Yeah, so he was having a really good run there. You get in the tyre bundle in the end, which really sort of impacted his performance. He was in the pits not long after, and I'm not sure if he was waiting for a spot to drop out or what it was, but he was in the pit lane for nearly a minute. So he must have picked up some pretty heavy damage.
Yeah, I'd say that's got to be damage related. I don't think there's too much that we can really pull off of that one. Well, I'm debating, Rhodey, now whether or not we actually want to do some broadcast interviews or whether we just want to get the next race over and done with and turn our attention to what happens after the fact. I'm almost inclined to say let's leave it and let's actually get the second race over and done with, and then we'll bring in a bit more of a crowd. What do you say?
I think I'm inclined to go with that. We'll probably push forward into race 2. We'll give the drivers a bit of a chance to go and have a bathroom break and the like, but yeah, we'll push into race 2, get all the racing done, and then we'll bring a slightly wider cast. Obviously, we'll have we'll probably more than likely end up talking to drivers champion and teams champions, whoever they turn out to be, or provisionally teams champions. We'll get a few other members in as well. Just one nice big. We're just aiming for the triple race starts, but one nice big cast to finish off the season. Yeah,
I think so. I think that's probably the smart idea. We'll probably get the top 3 for the round, which potentially is also going to be, or in one case, we might have to get a couple of extras in for the top 3, but also for the points championship as well, because Devonish is at the top. Rosella can't break into the top 3, but already laying his claim to a very nice round win overall. So there you go, Rhodey. I take it you're probably going to be furiously updating the points at the moment so we can get a rough idea of where the lay of the land actually sits post race number 1. I can see they're already being plugged in at the moment. And on the other side of this, I'm sure we will have some interesting feedback for everybody on how the drivers' points sits, but also how the team's points sits as well. Out of that one, Rhodey, I think very, very up and down race for a number of drivers. I think they've probably got a fair bit of soul searching and a fair bit of work to do, I would say, to get through that one and to prepare themselves for the next race coming up. Another 28 laps, so that went for about 41 minutes or so, that first race, which is a little bit longer because of the safety car intervention, but I guess when I looked at the clock and saw how much time we'd actually had elapsed in that race and looking at how much time we have left to do interviews and things, I thought, well, let's actually just get it over and done with, get the drivers that don't need to hang around for an interview at the end of the night on their way, because in some cases in New Zealand they're 2 hours in front of us. So right now getting close to midnight for them. We do appreciate the fact that they turn up each and every round to race, but we've got to look after them as well as the people on the West Australian side of the country as well, because they're 3 hours behind the Eastern Seaboard. So it becomes a bit of a managing act for our driving group.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got the points now up to date. Obviously, it doesn't do much for the drivers. I don't think it actually has come as a result of this with the my sheet is starting to align with your sheet pre-race now, because by virtue of having some points from Adelaide, Foley now does have a drop round. It's just his Adelaide round because there's only 90 points so far on the table, but it does move him down from that, and the result from tonight so far has moved him down from 3rd to 4th. Crucially, actually, with the way things are played out, as things sit right now, Tim is still sitting in 2nd. That's going to change. It's only got 20-point buffer to Brennan Ross, but it's taken them a little bit of a while to catch him. So I don't know if Tim would have magically appear in the next 5 minutes. That might swing the order around. But as things sit currently, Tim is still in 2nd. Foley will obviously drop a little bit further, but as things go, he's only going to drop another as things sit, another 15 points, and he's more than 15 points clear of Egmanis, who's in 5th on 22.73, plays 22.89 for Foley. But the important one we're actually really worried about is Wedding's also popped up back up into the top 10 by virtue of his reappearance at through the Enduros, but also popping up again tonight. The important one we're worried about is the team standings, and as things currently sit, it is still the lead to the Pixel Racing team. Not really a surprise based on how we saw the performance running for CRE in race number 1, but the gap has widened. It's now 62 points.
Yep, was 12 at the beginning of the night, so that's gone up substantially. So
it's by no means a guaranteed, but the way that Rosell has been performing and the way that Devonish has been performing, as we said at the start of the night, it's really just down to the Ross versus Egmanis fight on how this goes. But the way they're sitting right now, need a pretty good result for Egmanis and a pretty average result for Ross in race 2.
Yeah, well, it's not so much going to be down to one or two people. It's going to be down to both cars in the team, right? So first and foremost, the likes of Devonish and Rosella, they just need to finish. And then, yes, we're looking down the field to see what unfolds after all of that. Because, from a team's point of view, like we've looked at this year on year from a driver's point of view, as we've actually got a few drivers that are actually out for warm-up at the moment. We've actually given them 10 minutes because we wanted to allow drivers to go and have a little bit of a comfort break in between things as well. So we have got a little bit of on-track activity for you in this occasion. We did, for the last 5 years, have a situation where the driver's title went all the way to the last round, and in most cases to the last race, because a lot of rounds were, in the early days, it was just a single race round. Then throughout the years, it's evolved into a 2-race format or a 3-race format. In some cases, Enduro Cup was the final round as well. But for every year up until this year, driver's title went down to the last race of the season. This is the only year out of 6 years, 6 seasons, where it hasn't been decided at the final round, and the focus has gone to the Teams Championship. In a lot of occasions, the Teams Championship was probably the first of the ones to be sewn up because, the last couple of years, the likes of Luke Rosella and Kurt Stenberg, who's the only 2-time champion in Supercars in ASR, they were running in single-car teams. So they didn't have the points on the board from the second car to warrant being further up the order. They were doing really, really well in their own right to be as far up the order as they were. They just unfortunately didn't have that second car to help it from a points standings situation. And, teams' titles were typically decided well and truly by then. Most of the time it was going to CRE because, they had good cars and good positioning inside the top 10 most rounds. And unfortunately, that's just the way it went. So it's interesting just to see that the shoe's on the other foot this time. We're waiting for the end of the season to decide a team's champion.
Yeah, no, exactly. You make a good point. I mean, I talked earlier about all the time that both at Pookie and I talked tonight about all the time that Will had spent playing second fiddle in the Drivers' Championship, or third fiddle in some situations. He was third fiddle to the likes of, I think, Boki still finished ahead of him in 2019. Obviously, the main fight was with Foley. But even then through 2020, which was Kurt's first title, 2021 being Rosella's, Kurt being taking up 2 in the trot, and Kurt being the only multi-time champion so far. He's always been second or third fiddle to the pace that those I'm pulling out. He's at work, he's only ever been third fiddle. He's never been able to be the lead performing artist, as it were. He's always had to be the backup. But this year for Wills, he's able to be the one that shines at the front of the field. But also, it's gone the other way for him, as you just mentioned, with the Teams Championship, and it's been not just Pixel. I mean, a lot of guys have been running and trying to have a run at the team's title for the last couple of years, and Pixel in this current form has only been around for 12 months. But Pixel goes into the Pixel's lineup goes right to the back of you mentioned when we did the intro for the grid, when Pixel joined the championship, that Pixel were based on or were put together by ex FCR, and I won't say the full name because with a beer in me, I'm likely to hang on the wrong word in the word, and I'll say something wrong on the broadcast. But FCR and PBF. Interesting thing, next year Rossi and Lewis decided they're going to name themselves the Pixel Brothers Factory Team next year, so we potentially have 2 PBFs on the grid, which I'm not a fan of, but that's them. But they're one of the teams that's been very much battling to try and get something in the Teams Championship. I mean, FCR goes back to the days of Matt Williams and Brendan Ross, amongst other drivers. I mean, Foley used to run for Farcanal. Oh, I forgot I said their name now.
Yeah.
For FCR I think I got it through. For FCR in the TCC. But Lewis's thing has always been trying to get together a team that I suppose performs to his standards. And I'm not saying the teams he's had before haven't. I mean, he's had a really good running in, I think it was 2020 when he had I think he had 5 cars across 2 teams in 2020. He had the main team, which was himself, Zach Ross, and Pete Savage, and the secondary team, they're both under Loose Sim Sport. The secondary team with the HDS team with Billy Douglas Alonga and Mitch Hathaway, who we haven't seen for a while. 2021, I forget exactly what his lineup was. He probably, if he's in the chat, will correct me. But yeah, it's always been a struggle for, I think, Lewis amongst others. Definitely others trying to have a crack at that team's title. But the challenge has always been to try and get past CRE. And whether it was the recent years where it's been Will and Turmo, or the years prior where Pete Savage was in the second car. I think Liam Spencer spent a good portion of time in 2020 in the second car. It's always been the team to beat. So Still got a race to go, still got ordered or any post-race stuff to decide from there. But if they do manage to get there, it's been through the same level of commitment and work and just pure dedication to the task that we've seen Will put into the Drivers' Championship. So if Pixel do get there in the end, that's the reason they've got there. Yeah, they've managed to get the right combination of drivers and obviously bring in Luke at the back half of the season, really sort of padded them up a bit, but also getting Rosella there, getting Lewis there to set them up in the season and just being able to get that pace and get into a window and keep it there. Obviously, it's helped them out quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's been one of those tasks that for the last couple of years, it's sort of been, I guess the Drivers' Championship's always been the holy grail, but the Teams' Championship has sort of fallen a little bit by the wayside, and eventually that it's always been the task, as you said, trying to chase at CRE. How close can we get? Can we actually overhaul them? And they're one race away from doing that. And they did say halfway through the season, when Luke Rosella came in, that's the reason why they brought him in, because it was the Teams' Championship was getting out of sight. They were getting a bit too far in arrears, and they really wanted to have a red-hot go at it, and they've done just that. And look, to be fair to them as well, results have kind of gone their way as well, not only from the wins point of view, but a few of those little stumbles that we've often remarked about what's happened to CRE over the second half of the season. So if there's anything to blame, it's going to be, I guess, from their own doing, more so from being, I guess, outdriven by the real whole Pixel Racing Team drivers, because they've, I wouldn't say shot themselves in the foot, but the pressure has sort of been a bit too much for them, I think, at times, and it's gotten into their mindset a little bit more so than what the ultimate goal was supposed to be. Now, keeping in mind too, of course, this is the last round of the season and the last race about to come up. A lot of drivers asking about what's going on next year in ASR. The answer is we haven't decided. There's been a bit of thought around what we actually do, because we know in the real world, Gen 3 is very much with us in real-life supercars. We did show some preview glimpses earlier in the year of the work in progress with models running around in AMS, but there's still a bit of water to go under the bridge there. Not so much from the actual model design and the parameterization and things like that, because it's fairly easy to do that sort of stuff in AMS, but it's more around, what does 2024 look like, and is AMS the right platform for what we want to try and achieve? So that's all got to be thrashed out in the next week or so as to what direction ASR heads with the Supercars Championship and the Development Series Championships next year as well. Where do they sort of sit in the puzzle as well? Because if it's on a different platform, the real question becomes, is it right and fair to have the Development Series on one platform and the Supercars on another platform? In reality, the answer is probably no. It needs to be the same on, for both those series that are competing on the same platform. But it's only time will tell, I guess, Rody, when we actually have an answer on that question. So there's still, I guess, a few meetings to be worked out, and I guess that sort of shifts the focus, because for a number of years, ASR admins have tried to take a bit of a break over the Christmas period, but in some cases find ourselves being sentenced to a fair bit of work, especially when we've built things like the Mustang and things over the years. So there's only been probably 1 or 2 years out of the last 5 that we've actually probably truly had a half reasonable Christmas break.
Yeah, it's and basically, I think the last time we had a reasonable Christmas off would have been, and I say we, I wasn't a part of that team at the time, but I think 2019 through into 2020 was probably the last time there was a reasonable break. And it's just the way that life, but I suppose sim racing especially, 2020 came and it was an very average year for a lot of reasons, but for anything that was based on an online presence, of people being around and present online for things to work, everything that was online based saw an explosion for very obvious reasons. And it's sort of petered off a little bit over time. We're still, I think, comfortably above the numbers we had in 2019, at least in terms of frequent appearance members. Obviously, we're much higher in numbers in the Discord, but there's in terms of the actual grid numbers, we're still seeing pretty comfortably about or higher what we're seeing in 2019. But obviously, life is coming back into it for a lot of people. But yeah, it was nice for me to have a break, because we meant to do, as I mentioned, to do a couple of things. We meant to have a face-to-face meeting at some point in the last few years, and it's always meant to come up over summer, and we've been that busy over summer, and it just hasn't really worked out. So something we are aiming to do this year. It'd be nice to. I think at this point for myself, I've seen everyone's face, everyone at least from Victoria's face in person. Exception, I think, being Will. But yeah, it'd be nice to get up and meet. The other thing as well, and I'll say quickly on the move to RF2, if that happens for one or both the series, and they'll probably end up going together, whichever platform they go with. Either way, depending on for an AMS or for an RF2, there is also ideas floating around on if we sort of re-rack the queues, as it were, and make the decision on whether we essentially wipe the slate clean for all drivers and see perhaps if we reseed them Supercars, Super 2, Super 3 coming into the new year. For AMS, that's probably a little less likely because we know where everyone sits on AMS already. But RF2 is a complete question mark for the entire combined grid on where their pace will be. Some of them might drop off a little bit. Some of them might actually get quicker. I mean, Wayne Walker's an example I've just noted. He's got a lot of experience in RF2. He's got very little, at least from what we've seen in AMS. So he might actually go further up the grid if we're off to RF2 next year. But yeah, that comes in the window as well. Some drivers who are at the top of Super 2 who maybe might not be top of Super 2 anymore, might be middle of Super 2. So that's all those things that are gonna sort of shuffle out and roll out as we get into summer itself. And perhaps a bit less of a thing this summer, as we mentioned, we as admins would probably like to take a bit of a break, but I haven't got everything together to announce it just yet, but I am looking at running a summer series again, probably something stock content, something nice and easy to work with, like we've done not last year. Last year was the Group A's, but 2 years ago with the Brazilian hot hatches, something similar probably again. Something else as well that I'll throw out there that I am looking at running over summer. I know a few guys have been interested in painting their own cars, and by all means, you don't have to have lessons to do that. You can just start and learn that way. I mean, that's how I picked up a lot of what I've learned. So it's probably going to make me a pretty average teacher. But myself, and I'll look at getting some others in the field as well. It'd be nice to see perhaps some of the insight from Daniel Cox. Obviously, Lewis Wedding as well. He's been doing a lot of the painting. Brennan Ross, Lockie Lock. Some of those guys would be good to get in to have sort of a chat or a meeting session with, and get them to pass on some of their knowledge. But if you are looking at getting into some lessons or some meetings about how to approach painting your own cars, hit me up. And we'll throw something up over summer for a few guys, just so the opportunity is there. If you want to be able to paint your own cars, you can, rather than having to necessarily queue up in a list for the likes of Lockie Lock or Termo or Daniel Cox or Brendan Ross or myself to do paints for you. That said, I mean, those that paint, we're still happy to paint your cars, but obviously the more people that can paint cars, the better, because you see some more variety on the grid and people get to come up with some unique designs.
Absolutely. No, I applaud you for actually wanting to put your hand up and help some of the guys out. It's very generous of your time, Roddy. We did run a little session earlier on in the year when some drivers were painting their GT3 cars for the RF2 GT3 series that we've run, and it is quite a difference to paint for RF2 compared to AMS. So anyone that can wants to learn a little bit, there's the opportunity for you to do that there. You talked about face-to-face meetings as well. I actually just want to give a shout out not only to Cam Rutledge and CRE Electrical for their ongoing sponsorship at the Supercars Championship this year, but also across the ditch to to Peter Thrower and the Beyond Electrical guys, because they did not only chuck in some sponsorship money, but they also chucked in enough money for a round of beers for the admin crew as well. So that was very, very kind of them as well. So much appreciated, guys, over there. Thank you to CRE Electrical and Beyond Electrical for their ongoing sponsorship from the championship for the last 2 consecutive seasons. We certainly wouldn't be putting this on without you.
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to work out what Walshy means by fing painting. I'm not sure if
no. There is an ER on that on my screen.
Oh, I can't see it.
Finger painting.
It's got
Finger painting.
Yeah, on my screen,
it's got the weird
the
thing
heart.
they've added to. I don't know why they've added that to YouTube live chats, but they have, and it sits in the worst spot every time. But no, we'd like to do finger painting, which. I mean, we could probably teach you some dot painting for AMS. You know, do your liveries that way, Walshy, if you feel like it. But definitely a time-consuming way to do it on the computer.
Yes, I think so. I think Walshy needs to have a bit of a look at what sort of painting wants to do. This isn't kindergarten, so where finger painting is gone with the age of the dinosaur. That's what my youngest daughter brings home from daycare, finger painting. Anyway, all right, one more race to go. It has been a long season. Every 3 weeks, just about, for the balance of the year. Rody, for the final time, it is yours.
Alrighty, starting from pole is Luke Rosella, winning race number 1, definitely having a crack at a win for race number 2 to really lock in that team's championship advantage for the Real Holden Pixel Racing team. Second is Will Devonish for Race Engineering. He's doing his part to try and swing the balance back towards the blue, they are the blue squad, towards the lead Ford team, into the Falcon team for this year. Third is Noah Tara, doing very well for Ambit Racing by CRE to get his car up to third. He's had a really good run tonight as at his home track, hopefully to do just as good in race number 2. Brendan Ross starts from 4th, definitely doing his part for the Real Holden Pixel Racing team. Hopefully some more good running for Ross, but based off the pace at the end of race 1, his threat might be from Wayne Walker, who's running in the JD Racing car tonight, the number 98 Shell V-Power Mustang. Hopefully see him in a full-time capacity on the grid next year, with Lewis Wedding starting from 6th. Big recovery for Wedding from the pit lane to be running in 6th. He's going to be pushing further forward, I would expect, a little bit in race number 2. 7th is Leonard Grossel for the PBF Heron Rennsport team. He's had a spotty year for appearances, but when he's been here, he's been able to make it count, as he has in race 1 tonight, with Brenton Foley starting from 8th. PBF Engineering is one of 3 other PBF cars on the grid tonight. 9th is Curtis Ekmanis. A good recovery in the end, but not quite where he wanted to be. He's going to have to do a bit of work from here to get himself up the water for Series Race Engineering. 10th is Lockie Lock, Amber Racing by Series. Good recovery for him in the end, although he probably would have liked to be a bit higher up. 11th is Brat filling in for Zach Brown, second of the PBF Engineering Commodores, with Cam Rutledge in 12th. Good drive from him actually to get up there in the end, took advantage of the pitfalls of others. Cheese in 13th for the Racing team Tanifer, with NZ Snipes, his teammate, alongside him in 14th. Snipes had a couple of drive-throughs in race number 1. 15th is Bailey Hall. Good start, a poor end for race number 1. Hopefully he can turn that around for race 2. Pete Thrower, the first of the DNFs from race number 1, in 16th. Dane Liccardo in 17th. Ryan Smith in 18th, filling in for Ben Hall, with Scott Murrell in 19th, filling in for Daniel Cox. 20th is Nathan Higginson, and starting from the back of the grid, turning up for race number 2, as I said he probably should have in race number 1, but getting some time away from the wife is Phil Boak for PBF Motorsport, with his Holden tribute car being appropriate at the final round at Adelaide.
Certainly is. One more race to go for ASR Supercars in 2023. Let's go out in style around the streets of Adelaide, and we are underway. Have a look at that for a start from Rosella. Look at the slideways job for Wayne Walker back there as well. Left and right on the loud pedal. Ross challenging Will Devonish through the opening chicane as well. Couldn't make the move stick, but he has picked up a spot on Noah Tara. So good start for the Real Holden Pixel Racing Team Commodores, up to third and maintaining position on the road in first, as there's already a bit of push and shove up and down the field here. They're side by side, couple of cars deep through the staircase. Peter Thrower exits stage right at turn number 5, and then this group continues their side by side activity down into turn 7 and now onto the back straight.
Yeah, a little bit of anger at the back of the pack as well, just trying to shuffle for positions. A few drivers obviously down the back, not down there on pace, down there on the fortunes of race number 1. So they'll be looking to move up through the field. Bailey Hall, bit of a freight train up behind him.
Oh,
he's running
no, it's Tara Noah Tara down, went for the move down at turn 8 on Brendan Ross, out-braked himself. Now he's got to wait for this whole train, this angry pack, to go past. And look at that, he goes third, fourth on the road to 14th in a corner because of what happened with the out-braking manoeuvre at turn number 9. So for Tara, that puts him on the back foot, but it does elevate all the other drivers that were behind him up a spot as well, as Smith down the inside. That was on Brap. He managed to get that move done at the hairpin too. So a couple of early changes here in the early going in race number 29 of the championship. Egmanis has picked up a spot importantly. He's moved up to 8th, and that was by virtue of Tara dropping out of the top 10.
Yeah, Egmanis has actually got quite a bit of free air behind him now, so he can pick his battles. Massive log jam up behind locking into Snipes the Snipes were trying to go for a move at turn 3 there, the last lap through. Not really going to work, and they're currently, I think, 2 or 3 wide in the background. Smithy's trying to bind on this as well. Ryan Smith, Brap as well. Very angry little train. What that does mean, as I said, is Egmanis has a bit of free air to pick his battles with Leonard Grossel in front, and Cheese is already out as well.
Yep, he is indeed. So Noah Tara's caught in this log jam. He's about 4 cars deep at the moment. There he is. Fifth car in the train behind Bailey Hall, I should say. Through turn 8, Pumi got the wall. 1, 2, at least 2, maybe 3 cars got the wall. Murrell definitely got it in the back of shot. So there was at least 3 or 4 cars giving the wall in turn 8 a rub. And Snipes manages to hold on here ahead of, who we got there, Ryan Smith. And then Bailey Hall looks like he's managed to pick up Brap there as well through the last couple of corners too. So big log jam of a train, as you said, Rody. Plenty of action in this one at the moment. A little bit of an awkward braking situation down there at turn number 14.
Yeah, Ryan Smith just there in the back ends there. Snipes. Just spotted what happened to Cheese as well. Snipes nearly rolling it off of that's way too much of the inside curve at 1. Cheese looks like a disconnect for him, unfortunately, so that's a really bad way to end
and there's a PBF car in the back as well. I couldn't see those. It's Brap. Has he blown the motor? Something's gone wrong with the PBF 19. That's not, we certainly weren't expecting to see that. So he's unfortunately out of this one. We're going on board. You want to have a listen to what happened here. Did he get his ears boxed in, or did something go on here? Because, he's just sort of coasting it. Something's not quite right. Maybe it's a blown engine or something's failed.
Yeah, so I think what you missed through the delay of the replay was that he was down the inside of the front of Pinkerton through 1, turned in a bit too early, clapped, basically took the entirety of the tyre bundle through 1, which is what put him up on the 2 wheels and fired him in the outside wall at turn 2. So I don't think he's clapped the wall from. That said, he's pulled over and stopped, but I think there was probably engine in that. It was quite a heavy frontal impact in the fence.
There you go. So Higginson's doing his best to try and catch up now to the back of Locke, who was leading that little group at one stage. He's gone to the back of that group we were watching about 60 or so seconds ago. So plenty of change in those positions there. That frees. Egmanis, he's made a riot hash of it through the centre chicane, and this weekend is not going to plan for CRE Engineering. And with what's happening here, look at this, he's got to wait for the whole train to go past before he can move that car around. There goes Peter Thrower. Egmanis is now officially last, and I think this has now put the nail potentially in the team's coffin for 2023. Replay coming up. Have a look at this. So, comfortably running in 8th place. There wasn't too much going on here. In behind Brent Foley, he just sort of settled in for the moment. Have a look here through the chicane. Nicely through the curb there. That second curb is what threw him. He just got it at the wrong angle, and then all of a sudden ended up round facing backwards with a bit of a slide job. So that's a bit of a major concern there. There's been another incident I'm just seeing as well down at turn number 8, I think it is, at the hairpin. I think I saw Snipes potentially is facing the wrong way. Yeah, he is. He's facing the wall. And now getting it in reverse. So more replay activity to go on here. Let's have a look. Don't tell me. I was about to say you've preempted the inevitable here. Someone has to back out, and that's awkward. Then Locke got into the back of Snipes, so Snipes sort of caught on the outside trying to mind his own business, and a shunt of monumental proportions there for the 420 Beyond Racing Team Tanifer entry.
Yeah, and that was really unfortunate as well. Yeah, I think they were just I don't know, just the mid pack energy, I suppose. Yeah, somebody should have lifted. There were 2x2 through turn 8, and you don't go 2x2 anywhere through turn 8, let alone in a line the way they were. They're all lining up on Noah's Ark the way they were going.
Yeah, it was almost like Noah's Ark, wasn't it?
But yeah, in the end, the car on the outside had to, or at least in that case, Snipes had to back out, and Block was the first of those F5 cars who could get a run through turn 8 at racing speed without having to worry about a car next to them, and so of course he was right at the back of Snipes. And I think with where he was, the speed he was carrying, once he was into the corner, there was no way he was getting off the gas so he could give him room, because you're basically on the limit there.
Another retirement. I think it's Bailey Hall. Looks like he's had a moment as well. Just while we're watching that battle there with Wedding and Co. getting interested here, let's see what happens to Bailey Hall. He's pulled over at the side of turn 8. I think he's clouded a fence here somewhere. And yep, big slide job, overcorrected, and yep, good night. End of subject, and yep, done for the evening. So, wow. I did say you add concrete to Adelaide, and that's what happens.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of teams coming out at the end of the season. Hopefully, any of their drivers, not drivers, well, their drivers, but also their crew members, a couple of weeks worth of break. But I think regardless which platform we're going to, a couple of teams over the off season are going to have a few long nights rebuilding a few chassis.
I think a few test sessions as well in the sim rig for those drivers. Oh wait, hang on, we are in the sim rig. Anyway, that's beside the point. Before we went and had a look at that replay, this battle was starting to get really interesting. So Foley and Walker have tacked onto the back of Grossel and Wedding. So this is the closest battle on track right now between this group of 4. So the highs of Wedding, he's moved up 2 spots by Igmanus falling out, and the stablemate car there of Noah Tara falling out of the top 10. So he's not keeping up, I guess, with Brendan Ross at the moment. He's got his hands right royally full with the German and a couple of other friends.
He does, yeah. The interesting bit for these guys will be how they play against each other. I mean, Wedding and Foley obviously much seasoned competitors. They started racing in 2018, the year the league was started. Grossel's first appearance was 2021, but he sort of popped in and popped out, very much a flash in the pan. He only made a full-time reappearance this year, and probably should have been in Supercars from the start of the season, but he got there by virtue of being too fast anyway. But he hasn't spent a lot of time racing around Wedding. Wedding obviously dipping it halfway through the season to make room for Rosella in the lead car. But yeah, of all these, a little bit of experience racing together for Lewis with Grossel and Foley with Grossel. A lot of experience between Wedding and Foley, but none of the three of them, I don't think, have seen Walker. Perhaps Lewis. I know Lewis has done a little bit of sort of moonlighting in RF2, but I'm not sure to what extent he's been around the traps. I'm not sure Foley's done too much outside of what he's done here. And Grossel, by all means, has gone to other platforms, but he's a German, so he's going to go and race European League most of the time. I'm still not 100% sure why he's here, but we're happy that he is here. But yeah, the time zone and the ping aren't the most favourable for him when he races over here.
No, certainly not.
Yeah, interesting mix of relative experience to each other in this little battle train that we've got going.
And Wayne Walker's got his hands full with Brent Foley as well now, so they've just dropped a little bit of time from the back of Grossel's 666 Commodore, now down to 6th and 7th, so they're about 3/4 of a second behind these two. Oh, bit of lock brake now. Who locked that brake? I think that was Foley at the back of the two pair on screen that locked the brake going into turn 4. Did well to avoid running into the rear of the Shell Mustang. So this, I guess, wouldn't have been I guess what Walker was probably thinking when the night was going to go. I guess he probably didn't really know what to expect from the night. Completely foreign, I guess, for him in terms of how the series is run. Practice being available, but here on time. Good debut, good solid debut, I'd say. No real mistakes to date, and I think can be pretty proud of what he's achieved so far in a very short space of time, considering he only pretty much had a week to prepare. And I guess we will look forward to seeing if he decides to continue on in ASR in 2024. That's the one we're looking for.
Absolutely, yeah. I was just no, it's good to see him out here, and yeah, absolutely. I think regardless of what platform, I think he's so far with a race and 8 laps in the books, he looks like he's been enjoying himself out there. So definitely good to see him back in the new year. I'll just keep an eye on the live chat, and couple of comments coming in from two of the retired drivers. Very different outlooks, I suppose, on things. Bailey Hall's pretty appreciative of how the season went. He didn't think it was necessarily anything at this point at points of the year. His race, his year, his whatever we really need to add at the end of that. But he is looking forward to 2023, which is good. But 2023 has already happened. We're looking forward to 2024. Bailey, hopefully we'll catch you next year. But good to see you're looking forward to what's left of this year. Meanwhile, on the other end of the scale, Higginson, very simply put, just he feels a bit washed. Yes.
Yeah. And in Higginson's sort of defence, it's a bit difficult to, I guess, when you have the results that you have, to really enjoy your racing, and it's something that we've told him time and time again, is that you just, don't put the pressure on yourself. Yes, you're a Super 2 runner-up, you're in that sort of thing, and you're fast enough to be in Supercars, but when you're happy, and when you feel happy about yourself, you tend to perform a little bit better. When you put the expectations on yourself, let's give some fence a rub there. When you put the expectations on yourself, you inevitably start to feel too disappointed and too depressed when they don't go according to plan. So we've always said, you've got to think of getting yourself into a happy zone, but you've also got to, set realistic expectations. So you've got to go into it wanting to get a win for yourself, which means you get a win in terms of, set yourself a goal and try and achieve that. So if that means you try and at least finish a race without spinning, then that's the goal, and you start small and you slowly start to work your way up. Therefore, you've always got something to strive for. You've always got to take the positives out of those situations, and eventually things will come. It's when you start getting into the mindset of, I guess, a bit of depression. It's something my father's going through at the moment. It's very difficult to get you out of that mindset, but you just got to have a little bit of faith and just try and find something that makes you happy. And some cases, you've just got to pare it back a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, like case in point from what I see, my expectations for this year, outside of the fact that I would have liked to see, well, honestly, I came into this year having seen the pace of Darren and Jesse in Super 2, I went, I'm not getting a driver's title this year. In the end, I came pretty close. Cracker came closer. Actually, my aim early on was, right, Cracker's good this year, I'm not. Let's get Cracker a championship. Hasn't quite worked out the way I would have liked to, but there's always next year. But my realistic goals are qualifier over qualifying, finish ahead of where I qualified. That's it. The only other goals I've had is I've had one or two drivers throughout the year that I've gone, I have to be ahead of this guy. Sometimes it's because whoever it is I'm racing against, him and I have had bad blood at some point. So I'm just like, if I'm ahead of him, he can't trouble me. But generally, I've had a couple of guys in mind who've gone, right, as long as I qualify ahead of you, I'm happy with how my qualifying is going, and then the race goes from there. And then, if I finish ahead of where I qualified, normally I'll finish ahead of that person. But that's sort of been the simplified goal-making mind. And you can set yourself goals of winning races, but you have to have achievable goals. I think we saw the same thing with, I know you and I have had experience with Ricardo, I think it was last year. Similar thing of just setting reasonable goals.
Yes.
And setting attainable goals.
Yeah, attainable goals is the thing, because you've got to be able to chip away at that, over time. You've got to be able to have something that you can actually aspire to, and when you achieve that goal, it actually makes you feel good about yourself. So you're right, and that's the hard part that a lot of people sort of struggle to understand, and it's a very easy trap to fall into. Speaking of Ricardo, here he is on screen. He's actually now latched onto the back of Ryan Smith and Leonard Grossel. Now, Grossel's fallen out of that battle group with Walker and Wedding and Foley, who have now kicked on a little bit. In actual fact, Lewis Wedding has kicked on quite substantially ahead of that group, so there must have been a bit of biff and barge, as he's planting some really nice lap times at the moment. That last one through was a 21.1. Foley and Walker both in the 22s, so he's really gotten a wriggle on Lewis Wedding in the last handful of laps and opened that margin quite substantially.
Absolutely. I just went back and caught the most recent DNF. That was ended Snipes. He picked up a lot of understeers and turn 8s, like the outside wall, like the inside wall. Very similar to a couple of real life accidents we've seen there before in the past. That was popped engines. Unfortunately, both the Team Panama cars out for the last race of the season. But it's been good to see them here this year. Obviously, this race not quite going to plan for them. But good little run of pace for Wedding. And actually, I'm looking a little further back in the pack. A little 3-car battle now between Grossel, Ricardo actually was who we were just talking about, and Smith.
Yeah, so Smith just lost a position to Liccardo in the last couple of corners, and he then tried to have a little bit of a look at Grossel, I think down the inside at 5, but couldn't quite get the nose up there enough. But he's got a little bit of pace on board, car number 11 at the moment, Dane Liccardo, and Grossel's having to give him a little bit of room here. Now Liccardo's got to return the favour through here at 10, and he does. In actual fact, comes out with the higher ground, so Grossel conceded at that point, so I think he's got to play the long game here.
Yeah. Given
that pit stops, if they are going to happen, are probably not too far away. Now, we only saw 1 or 2 green flag stops in race number. Oh, there's a safety car. That changes the game, and it's Wayne Walker, I think, who's actually in the lane. Actually, he's in the lane before the safety car's called. I called that wrong. I thought he might have been the one that caused the DNF, but look at this. He's in the lane as a green flag stop as the safety car is called. Now, the real question is, what is the safety car for?
I don't know. I'm scrubbing through to try and pick up. I really don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened there either. Something has definitely caused a full course yellow. It's definitely not a planned full course yellow. If you're looking for a roadie.
No, the only thing I might perhaps say, and it would line up with like the way this where this track throws yellows at the last corner because cars are slower, but they're in the pit lane, but they're not actually in the pit lane yet. The only other thing I would say is about the same time that Walker pit, Foley had a half spin through the last corner.
Oh, maybe.
Tara was a few seconds behind, but that would be the only thing I would say to have. I know that, and to put out the full clarity for those watching along at home, there has been sort of unknown cautions sort of thrown out there through the enduros. But those have been ones that we've pre-agreed to with the drivers that, look, we as admin, we're going to throw a random safety car at some point during the race. And those have been with races of sufficient length for it. That's something we're only doing for enduros. So this isn't us. We've genuinely got no idea. That's probably the cause of it. But yeah, the only way we're getting a safety car tonight is from on-track action.
Yeah, that's right.
That is most likely it. But I can't see anything. It's hard to stop a live race replay and go and find out where it is. But realistically, considering the fact that he throws a yellow for people pitting, and Taro was around Walker when he pit, I'd say that's possibly it. And the game was just a bit sensitive at that corner.
Possibly a little bit sensitive. Hey, have a look what's happened again, will you? Will Devonish just come out with the lead of the race over the pit stops. So again, something that's happened to Rosella, where he's taking on a bit too much fuel or doing some damage repair or something that's gone on. There's been another change for position out of the pits. So something not quite right there on the pit stops for Real Holden Pixel Racing Team. Not that it's probably going to matter, I think, to Luke Rosella, because he's going to be probably past Devonish in a flash. Now, the whole field has been given the wave by as well. The balance of the cars that were caught between the race leader and the safety car have been given the wave by to get back onto the back of the train. That is the rule in ASR Supercars, is that you cannot be a lapped car between the leader and the safety car when it goes back to green. So you can be a lapped car in the queue, but you can't be the first car immediately behind the safety car and be a lap down. You have to be out the way because the leader controls the restart when it goes back to green.
Yes, similar-ish to Dev Series Pukekohe, but obviously there wasn't the entire that had to run through when Will Devridge is about to catch the safety car, so we won't have the quite the out of the box restart that we had in Super 2, Super 3 at Pookie. But to answer for those guys looking in the live chat, I'm not obviously seeing the live stream as you guys are seeing it. I'm seeing my own end. But I guarantee if we're watching a car in the pit lane at time, it will be showing green in the top left, because once you enter the pit lane, it indicates the pit lane flag state rather than the track flag state.
Yeah, that's correct.
Once you're in the pit lane, unless the pit lane is closed, which we have had in GT3, it will indicate a green flag to indicate the pit lane's open, otherwise indicate like a red flag to indicate the pit lane's closed. But once you get back on the track, it will go flashing yellow, and then obviously under safety car itself, it goes under a permanent yellow.
That's right. Now, the big loser out of all of this, Rody, is Leonard Grossel, right? So he was up well and truly inside the top 10. He had a bit of a fall down the order, but he's now the last classified runner. So riddle me how that has occurred. And it must be to do with timing for the stop.
The timing for the stop, the only thing I would say is that him and Smith are sharing a pit booth.
Oh, yes, that's a very valid point.
So it's possible that order one way or the other, perhaps coming to pit lane, I could go back and look, asking a couple of laps at this point.
One was in the boot but couldn't get in.
But I'll just make an educated guess. That's possibly either that or we just like this. I've done this before where I've gone, I'm going to make a pit stop, but I'm not planned for it at all. I have to sit there in a pit lane doing 20 k's an hour, hammering my down button on my LCD so that I take all the fuel out of the car, kind of a thing. So perhaps that's come into it as well. I think we're actually, did we get a restart? We are getting a restart.
Yeah, we are getting a restart here.
Darley.
Yeah, we are getting a restart. So Will Devonish is going to take the restart here. Now I'm going to have to make a small adjustment here because Wayne Walker has just been issued a penalty, but of course that is incorrect. That is going to have to be addressed. And we're going to go back to a green flag race in just a few moments' time. So a little bit beyond the half distance mark, we go back to green flag racing. Devonish leads them away, but Rhodey, you remember what happened last time. This didn't last long.
No, just a couple of guys at the back. I was thinking their running start at this. The closest to it, probably Phil Boak. He had to break very little. Scott Moles had a full running start at this safety car as well, so he'll play in a little bit later into the picture. But no, for Devonish, very much strategy play put him up the front, but it's really down to the race pace. And we saw in qualifying, we saw in race 1, the race pace advantage goes to Luke Rosella. Will's going to need to really bluntly park the bus for the next the next half the race, essentially, to have any chance of coming out on top. Realistically, he's going to have to stay as close to Rosella as he can. He could stay ahead, but we know Rosella's got the pace, and Rosella knows that as well. So he's probably just going to wait and pick his moment.
Yep, I think so. And last time around it was at turn number 8, and he got it done pretty much on the first lap of the restart. It's not turn 8 this time, but I dare say it won't be very long before the number 88 flashes through at some point or another. Here we go. It's probably going to be down to hairpin, I'd say, if he's got the run this time around, or up at turn 4. Pick your poison, and Devonish drives it down the middle of the road, heads off the potential opportunity for Rosella there. A little bit of Morse code on the back of the number 15, not too much, just a little bit of minor contact there, nothing in it at all. And Rosella, I think, is lining this one up for turn number 4, so hit the curb, don't hit the curb on the way in, get the run through. Here we go. Devonish does park the bus. You called it right, Rhodey. He parks the bus on the run down to turn number 4, and he'll park the bus again here going down into turn number 5. So this is a great illustration here of what defensive driving is. He opens the door here though, and Rosella down the inside to flash, a little bit of a door rub, but there you go. It took place at turn number 6. Oh, Ross in the background got a little bit happy on the loud pedal with Wedding right over him. And where is Igmanis in all of this? He's 11th. So the safety car has helped him, but he needs to clear the pack. That's the important thing. And right now, he is buried in it. So they've been thrown a lifeline here, CRE Engineering. They can possibly still make something out of this race. From a team's championship point of view, they need a lot of help, but they're going to fast run out of laps if they don't do something quickly. Yeah,
I think like any given day, Igmanis could have the pace to play this. He might actually get a little bit of a free kick here as well. Folks just rub the wall, had a bit of a wobble off the curb as well. So that's going to put Igmanis through into 10th. Igmanis, any given day, has the pace. Whether today, whether on these tyres, whether with this, whatever setup they've got on their car at CRE, whether he has the pace today, we don't know. That's really up to Turmo to know and figure out and to do something with over the next, 10, 11 laps. So it's up to him. The next car he's got to catch is Ryan Smith, who probably, definitely because he's in a team car, probably won't make things too difficult for him. From there, it's Foley and then Liccardo.
Yes, that's right. So a little bit of an interesting train just ahead. 3 Commodores, there they go. 1, 2, 3 through turn number 6. Past the Repco signage here, up to turn number 7. Now just remember, for a few of the eagle-eyed viewers, and yes, I'm talking about you here, Brian Walsh, that wall has been there on the outside of turn 7 since all the way back in 2019 in real life. It only meant that we put it into ASR for Supercars last year. That was the first time it was remodeled. So it's not a new wall. It's been around for a handful of years. It just never ever made it to a sim until the last sort of 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, with where it's at, the Adelaide's in a unique position on the Supercars calendar. The track already existed in a first-party form, whereas a lot of those tracks that have been out there, either we've scratch-built ourselves or we've been able to make some slight adaptations to as we've gone down the line. Obviously, we're transitioning to more stuff that we've had more direct control in over time, but Adelaide's the one that doesn't really make sense to do, because Razor did do a very good job of putting the track together as it sits right now. So there's a couple of additions to update it, but the base track is probably the best base, or one of the best base examples we've got on the calendar.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There wasn't a lot that had to be done here. It was just pop in the wall, a couple of small minor AI driving line tweaks to cater for the fact that there was now a wall there, and just tidy up a few of the track limit infringements at some of the more challenging and unusual spots. So that's where that all ended up. So it wasn't too much work to do, and of course the annual signage that goes along with it, which Lewis Wedding does a great job all the time as well. Whenever he does that, he jumps in and pops all the signage up. And there's been a few new track cameras added over the course of time as well to best mimic the real-life supercars calendars. So Wayne Walker now under some pressure from the recovering Noah Turra. That safety car's given him a lifeline as well, Roddy. He had worked his way back into the top 10 before the safety car came out. So now he's moved himself up into 6th place with all the moving and shaking in pit lane. So this would be a good recovery drive for him if he could wrestle that number 26 onto the podium. It's doable.
Absolutely, yeah. The question is going to be how, not even if drivers around to be willing, but I suppose how willing are those in front of him to do that. Like, we know from qualifying, we know from his performance so far in both races, he's probably got the pace for it. You know, he was up there on pace with Devonish, with Rosella, and it's currently a pretty comfortable gap between, well, currently still Rosella, who I'm surprised hasn't got past Will just yet, but Rosella and Ross for 2nd and 3rd. And I suppose for Rosella's point of view, he doesn't need to win this race.
Major moment for Turra. What happened there? He got the inside wall. He's retired. Wow.
Yeah, he ripped the wheel off the car.
Oh, he has too. So, major. We were on board when that happened. We tried to switch to the outside camera to see if we could get an angle on it. And let's have a look at this from the outside. This will be a rather interesting observation. And nothing wrong there. This is the key point here. So, oh, wowee. Just hit it at a really, really strange angle.
Yeah, potentially, I don't know, I think like a slight, not just something in the hitbox, I'm not entirely sure. It was the way that it grabbed it, like normally you can pretty smoothly run down that wall if you get there. Just something in that, like a slight pixel or something, not quite, I mean, we'll obviously we'll later, but that one was quite old one. And where will the drive through, I'm going to guess, for track limits? Yeah,
it's going to have to be track limits, that one, because he's gone to the lead of the race, but I dare say he's probably run through the centre chicane and picked up a track violation. We'll go and have a look and just confirm that. I'm pretty sure it is. Oh, and Rosella's trying to stick his nose down the inside at 5, so maybe something's got a little bit egregious between the two of them. Let's actually have a look at this. So it looks like Devonish was already through by the time they got to turn number 1. This will indicate where the infringement is, and yep, that'll be where it is. And then it went on. This is the bit that I didn't get, Rhodey. So just keep an eye on this. Up to turn 4, all good through here.
All right, hang on.
And then up to turn 5, all good through here. Unless this has happened a little bit earlier. And then just a little bit of a lunge there for Rosella. And I don't know if there's much more in that. It looked a lot worse from the other angle.
All right, so all manners of things happened live while we've been in the replay. That contact for Rosella punctured a tyre. So with Wedding, so he then missed the next turn at turn 7. I'm going to guess rubber the wall at turn 8, but the important bit, he was down the runoff at turn 9. Simultaneously, you have to go back to the replay. Lewis Wedding was sideways at turn 9, like he hits back the wall pretty hard through turn 8 would be my guess. We'll have to go back to the replay to find that one.
Yeah, and he's Rosella. He's actually gone off. He's gone off at turn 11, so he's in some trouble.
He's going to have probably a right front or a left front puncture. He's trying to limp the car back, but I'm not sure if he's going to get back at this point. That's probably going to be something that goes down the steward's room, that incident. And I can see how that happened because I've been there myself with drivers in front that have picked up a drive-through and thought, okay, you're not in this battle anymore, get out of the way. But really, they're only out of the battle when they actually pit. But yeah, all manner of poo has been flung.
Yeah, I was about to say, the monkeys have picked up the feces and just thrown them all around at the moment. And now Wedding has got his hands full with Wayne Walker. Brendan Ross is 5.5 seconds up the road, so Brendan Ross has got a comfortable margin to what would be his first win of the season here if he can make this happen, aside from the joint wins that he holds with Luke Rosella for the 2 Enduro Cup victories. And Wayne Walker goes through. So Walker through at turn number 9 at the hairpin, and Igmanis around behind as well. So My oh my, Teams Championship permutations have absolutely swung something chronic in the last couple of minutes. So Ross to the lead. Rosella is a non-finish. Rosella's out. So
yeah. So I'm not going to bother to do the math because I guarantee whatever we put on the point sheet isn't going to be final. I guarantee there's going to be a steward's filing of some sort after this race. But the way this is going, I think this is going to swing back in the like Ross is out front, but I think it's still purely math going to swing back in the positional favour of CRE. But all I'm going to say is energy-wise, and Darren said something similar in the chat. This takes me back mentally, different circumstances obviously, but this takes me back to the last race at Barbagallo in Dev Series, where we saw the two leaders through dubious circumstances both end up not in the lead at the back end of the race. So this is very similar vibe feeling. I'm not going to make a call on it. I saw some of it live, some of it in post. I'm not going to make any call on it, but all I know for now, Ross has a 6-second lead over Wayne Walker per second.
Yeah, so that's where it is at the moment, and you're right. We're not in a position now tonight to officially call any of the minor placings for the Drivers' Championship or for the Teams' Championship at the moment in general, because we just don't know where it's going to end up. We'll know based on the current provisional results, and actually that's one word that I do need to use very, very vigorously is provisional.
Yep.
And all results are provisional and at the end of this night until next week. There is a stewards form that is open for 72 hours. It has to be logged, and I dare say the stewarding panel will be sitting probably on Tuesday night at this stage to not only decide what's happened in Supercars, but also decide what's happened in Development Series as well. There's only one from there. So Locke's actually just given up a spot to Will Devenish. That's probably going to be little comfort to any of the Pixel guys here. The hard part's going to be it is the last part of it's the last race of the season, so there's no all penalties need to stay within the race. That's the big situation that a lot of people need to understand. So when we get to an end of season situation with penalties, there are no penalties that can carry over into a following season. They have to be dealt with at the time.
I will say on precedence there is exception. I think
for qualifying results.
We gave qualifying bans the only one. Qualifying affecting results the only one will carry over, because I think we did it for Ben.
No, it was Zach Brown from last year. Pukekohe carried over. Yes.
That was the only carryover. Yeah. So yeah, we'll have to have a look on. That's the only one that carry over. Everything else will stay within race. What it all means in practice, I just also know Smith drive through for track limits. He's just served his Vokes, doing the same thing now. What this means in the race itself, regardless of whatever comes out next week, is that Ross has to probably finish first, and he has to finish far enough ahead of the two cars behind him. 60 points is, as it sat beforehand, isn't a big gap, but it's only under 50 points for a win. The way the points will carry down from there, they still need to finish pretty comfortably, the two Serie cars, for that to even theoretically, provisionally go back their way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to make any more calls on that outside of the end of the night when we plug things in. But yeah, I think most of us at this stage know that isn't how things are going to look next week.
Yeah.
One way or the other.
Yeah, that's right. We'll wait and see what happens with that. The upshot here is we need to focus on what's happening in the closing couple of laps. So there's 3 and a bit laps to go. Foley is coming under some pressure here from Liccardo, who hasn't had a podium all season long, and now finds himself in third, battling with the former series champion, I think it is, from 2019. And through he goes and into third place. So that means Foley will be fourth. Devenish on the road now up to fifth after all of that. But that's, of course, with drivers that have gone in and served some penalties for their track indiscretions, along with himself. And then Wedding now in sixth. I'm not sure how he ended up down there in sixth. I'll have to go back and check the replay on that one as well. Wayne Walker's not making any inroads into Brendan Ross, so Ross has got a comfortable enough cushion at the moment to, cruise, I guess, to the victory here. All the focus is going to be on what's happening here. Ricardo just needs to leave a little bit of space, and he leaves just enough and not much more. That actually creates a bit of a wedge,
awkward.
And that was very awkward. because Liccardo had not only Foley to contend with, but he had Devonish to contend with there as well, and now he's sort of rejoined in a really awkward spot in front of Wedding, and those two I know don't like each other very much, but that's going to be probably another one I think that one would feel aggrieved by. And
I think what that was just, I think, with where the cars are at and just the contact. I'm not sure whether Will's presence played any part for that for Foley, but just ever so slightly getting into the rear. Liccardo, I don't think is too pleased with Foley right now. I very much take from Foley it wasn't an intentional move, but I haven't seen much of a redress from Foley either. So
no,
that indicates some intentions perhaps in that, but still a very willing battle. Wedding's very much processed straight through, and he's heading off. He perhaps is going to go have a look at Walker over the next 2 laps, but he's not going to have much time left in the next 2 laps. So what was a battle for the podium is now a battle for fourth as Foley skates it wide and effectively redresses, but also not quite. But Liccardo makes sure of it. Yeah,
Liccardo makes sure of it. That battle's going to go on for a little bit here as well. I think the top 3 for the moment will be settled post, before any penalties are applied. The bit that sort of has got me a bit gobsmacked in the last half of this race as well, as we were looking during the week at which drivers we felt were in the frame to wildcard or substitute for drivers this particular round, and it all came down to what a number of drivers had done over the last couple of rounds in Dev Series and drivers' performances. We picked the drivers that we thought were in the best possible positions and had demonstrated the best possible racecraft over the last couple of rounds to do that. And then we see some of the main game drivers, getting it on in the way that they have. And it sort of is a little bit of a disappointing end to the finish, because some of the drivers that are unfortunately out of this one, the likes of Rapp, have driven fairly clean and through no fault of their own. And then some of the other substitutes that have been brought in have actually done quite a good job. So the likes of Ryan Smith, who's had 2 good solid rounds or races in Ben Hall's number 21. And it's the main game drivers that are letting the side down here.
Yeah, it's what it is. I think partially just it's a late night. I think this is the latest actually we've been racing all season, just by virtue of how things have rolled on, a couple of delays here and there. Just to be fair, it was still the right decision to withhold the interviews until after race 2, although that said, a few drivers we probably are going to have to either ask some very specific questions to, or perhaps we might have to bring them in something else where maybe round 1 next year to talk about some stuff, because they might have had a chance to cool down from tonight's proceedings. But to talk about the fill-ins, perhaps he's been a fill-in, but he's realistically almost been like a provisional Supercars driver since about round 5. He's one of the few drivers that's had a look. If you finish well, essentially, we automatically give you the option to run in Supercars the next round. But Smithy, he's been doing a really good job, actually. He was someone that did pose the question earlier in the week. It's just like, hey, look, I finished on the podium. Do I not get a wild card? And look, it was explained, look, there's a limit of cars available and all that. But in the end, the way things turned out, Smithy did get the opportunity to fill in for Ben. And he's done a really good job. He's one of the few drivers from SES potentially looking at Supercars next year. I say potentially. They've intelligently, or they've chosen to give me absolutely nothing in info.
We'll find out.
I know with 2 of their drivers. I know Dane's one of them.
We'll find out that later, bro.
We'll
worry about that a bit another time, because you're going to have to get the history books out here, because when was the last time that Brendan Ross took a Supercars win? He's just won another race. Yep. So it's been a long time between drinks from Brendan Ross. I remember at the beginning of the year, we talked about it had been a long time between podiums for Brendan Ross. We'll now get that record book out and find how long it is between wins. You can have a chin wag to him at the end of the night, because he is your race 2 winner in some weird and unusual circumstances. Wayne Walker gets a 2nd place finish to go along with his finish in race number 1, so not a bad result for a night's work for Wayne Walker. Kept it out of trouble, importantly, drove very, very cleanly, so he'll be pretty pleased with that. And then the big cloud over the Will Devonish number 15 machine here, question marks to be raised over into this corner a handful of laps ago. We'll see the demise of Luke Rosella. So that means he's currently 3rd at the moment for the time being. Liccardo in 4th, Foley 5th, Wedding home for 6th. It's a good result for Lewis Wedding. A pair of 6th place finishes for Lewis Wedding. Well done. Leonard Grossel home in 7th in the PBF Huron and Son Rennsport machine. Egmanis to 8th after his recovery drive again. Lockie Lock in 9th. He was the soul of the amped up racing by CRE cars to get home, with Noah Turra's unfortunate non-finish. And then Cam Rutledge, he's going to round out the season with a top 10 in the CRE and Anson Motorsport number 015 Commodore. So CRE Electrical getting some representation in the top 10 there. Murrell finishing in 12th, just ahead of him was Ryan Smith, Phil Boak, Peter Thrower. They were the last of the classified finishers. We lost Luke Rosella with the incident that we've talked about a couple of times now. Noah Turra hitting the wall, turn 7. Snipes, Higginson, Bailey Halls, both the Beyond Racing Young Guns didn't make it. Brapp and Cheese looks like he was a disconnect in the early going. So an interesting finish to an interesting night's worth of racing, and let the burnouts commence to conclude the season, Rody.
Absolutely. So I think it was Foley Foley is trying to do a burnout into pit lane, but yeah, there's a few guys up there. Wayne Walker's up there, I guess. First round in the bag. Ryan Smith up there. A couple of guys doing the classic bangers up against the wall burnout. Rossi is obviously as the final race winner for the season. Yeah, I think a few guys, one or another, very happy to get 2023 in the books.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot to fathom here as well, just to work out a couple of things over the off season. And as the drivers are all finishing up, and we'll just grabbing a couple of drivers at random just to bring them up in for a little bit of a chat with us as the celebrations continue. So that is it, Rody. The form guide can go in the bin for 2023. There's plenty of drivers that have had some good performances, some drivers that have taken their first win in quite some time. I think you're still probably doing the math to work that one out. I've lost the access to the sheet, I think it is, that tells me when the last time they ran.
The problem is I have my sheet, but I stopped updating it last year. But I know it's been... Well, no, I think to be fair, Rossi's last win was, I think, Queensland last year.
There you go. So it's been well over a year.
I think, I need to look at this year, but I know that his last win last year was, the last win I think we talked about was Queensland, because he really made the note that he went it was 2 or 3 years between wins or podiums, and then came up 2 rounds later and got another win. So it's definitely been a while for Rossi, and he probably knows the stat better than me. So he'll probably make mention of that at some point. Just trying to get the last of the results in so we have some idea of where the points sit. Few DNFs that won't need to factor in, but Pete Thrower is the last of the finishers, who is the last one that will score points for tonight.
Mm-hmm. So there's a few drivers we're bringing up as well here. So I'm going to give you a little bit of rope here, Rody. I've got 4 drivers that I've called up, plus 2 drivers that have sponsored the category of the season this year that I want to hopefully get up here as well. So with a bit of luck, those that I've called up will make an appearance.
Yep.
So I'll let you loose with them, and you can have a bit of a discussion with those guys, and hopefully I'll finish it off with the guys that are here for sponsorship interviews a bit later on. So you can start with wherever you like with these 3 gentlemen who are in the chat here, and I use the term gentleman rather loosely. You can decide who you want to start with.
Absolutely. Well, we'll start with Brendan Ross, who has spent the last 2 years campaigning that he's been over the hill. He's been out of it. He can't possibly win another race. And as I mentioned, he won a couple last year, and he's added to it again this year. Rossi, I suppose first, although you probably haven't. Actually, no. Sorry, your most recent win was in the Enduro Cup, but prior to that, what was your most recent win?
I would like to say it's technically Queensland last year, but crossing the line first is actually Calder in 2019 race 1. Well over 1,000 days ago.
Good point. I forgot actually that you did get that win through external assistance, as it were. So yeah, this is your first win in over a year solo, and your first on track win in 4 years.
3 years.
3 years. Sorry, 3 years. Yeah, the math hurts. So thoughts on how your race evening went?
Leading into finishing race 1, good. But awfully disappointed to actually win that race. Considering just how the team championships look like it's probably going to turn out. Pending any penalties from what I've been told could possibly arrive, but yeah, like I said to Luke and Lewis before, it's 2 years in the making for us to try and get this team's championship, and it looks like it might have only taken a little bit of contact to potentially take that away from us after a good night. But putting that aside, I think it did all I could, especially coming off the back of Pookie. Absolutely disappointed with myself. It was a terrible, shocking drive by me. But to come to Adelaide, which I've been confident at, was confident last year, was able to sort of race toe-to-toe with Will last year in the Enduros. Mind you, he had COVID at the time, but still to finish first on track. Mind you, Will's was obviously got the penalty, and Luke obviously the damage. It's probably they would have finished first and second. Sorry. So other than that, good win. Happy to finish it off. More than likely that is Holden's last win in the main Supercars series. So that's something that I can probably hold a test to, similar to Feeney.
Yeah, you actually make a good point. Depending on how things play out, it is potentially the last season that we'll have Holden in the Supercars Championship. Definitely some point in the future we will see Chevrolet take its place. But I suppose regardless of the point standings, any sort of thoughts, I suppose, for the team as a whole? You had obviously the four drivers start the season, yourself, Lewis Wedding, and you've got Hans Brunswick and Lockie Burke in the second team, and obviously Roselle's jumped in halfway through the year. But thoughts for how 2023 has gone for the Pixel Sim Sports boys?
We haven't, aside from putting Luke aside, Luke's obviously as good as he is. The rest of us, mainly Lewis and I, we haven't been confident in this year's car, but seeing, I think I've finished, just selfishly, I think I've finished second in the main series, which is, it feels like I shouldn't finish second, but I think I've finished second. But we haven't felt confident in this car all year. We were much more confident in last year's car, and we thought we really probably deserved last year's, considering it's just Lewis and I. But then we brought Luke in this year to sort of help us, put us a little bit back on track, and just help us mainly for setup-wise. So it's been good having him. Good having Hans and Berkey when they've showed up. Obviously, outside commitments have hurt them. A massive shout out to Foley at Pookie last round. He helped us in the sister PBF team to at least give us some points for 88 to keep us alive in the teams championship. And obviously Zach and Stenny jumping in at the Enduros. It was good to have them around. Good to learn from Stenny, just from what he's done. But overall, we've had a fairly good season to also win Enduro Cup, and potentially we've probably lost teams, but hopefully it might change, but I can't see it. Maybe I haven't seen the incident yet, so fingers crossed. But it is what it is.
Absolutely. And I suppose last question going into 2024. I know there's possible team name changes on the way. Potential driver changes as well. Any sort of secret exclusive reveals you can give us in the interviews as to what Pixel looks like in 2024?
We will be a real motor company.
So that's good enough.
Take of that what you will. Who knows? We should more than likely possibly be on the grid. We may not. We haven't had the best year this year, but we've finished higher than what we should have. But I think we'll still go around next year. Probably a different lineup to what you'll see this year, but that's all to be sorted. That's off-season stuff. So, been a good season. Congrats to Will. Congrats to Sarah. They did good all year. Congrats to Tamo, obviously getting his first win early in the year, and to Noah getting one at Tassie, I think it was too. So they've stepped up this year. Noah's definitely probably the biggest improvement that I've seen. But yeah, good to have a little bit of competition around.
Absolutely. Well, good work by yourself tonight, Rossi. Obviously, maybe you weren't there on pace for the win, but you have to be on track. You have to finish first. You have to finish first, and you managed to do that in the end. So your first on-track win, as you mentioned, since Calder in 2019, which goes back quite a way. But great work tonight, Rossi, and hopefully we will see you in some form in the new year.
Yep, thank you. And just hi to Levi, Chili, Dad, and the Chaffee boys at home.
Alrighty, we're going to move over from one of the more experienced runners in the ASR Supercars Championship to the very newest with Wayne Walker. And Wayne, what's your first impressions coming over to AMS from RF2?
It's a very different feel. And in R Factor 2, the series I race in, it's fixed setup as well. So coming across to the open setup, it's a lot different. And I also didn't have a lot of time to sort of work on setup either, so it wasn't feeling the best. But yeah, just drove it the best I could.
Absolutely. Well, I suppose with that in mind, then coming into tonight, the expectations would have been, or if there were any, probably not terribly high. So I imagine you've probably performed to where expectations put you. How did the night go for you?
Yeah, qualifying, I didn't put a very good lap in, same as the shootout. I'd actually done quicker laps on full fuel. But then yeah, for the start of the first race, got a really bad start. Got swamped. I think I went back to about 11th or 12th on the first lap, and I think I worked my way back up to 6th by the end. And then yeah, second race, got a better start, and yeah, just tried to stay consistent, and yeah, others sort of crashed around me and ended up second.
Absolutely. Well, a fifth and a second for the night. That's, I think, for debut drivers in Supercars, that sort of, has been maybe one or two others that have come in and been that fast, that quick. Very early thinking. Obviously, your first, you only just had your first round squared away, but what's your thinking coming into 2024?
Yeah, well, I messaged Will and just said, can I have a run in the last race, and sort of looking at coming into a new series, and yeah, it's very different AMS. They're a lot different to the R Factor V8s.
Absolutely. So thinking about running in the championship next year, or are just going to sort of see where things take you?
Yeah, I think I'll sign up and have a run next year.
Awesome. Well, good to see performance tonight. Good to see you out there. And as you mentioned, with all sort of hurdles that were put in front of you, you're doing a pretty good job adapting to the cars and getting the sort of pace that I suppose you expected, or people are expecting, or it's the pace you've been having before with you running in RF2. So good to see you tonight, Wayne, and podium in your first race weekend's a pretty good place to start. And hopefully we'll see you again next year.
Yep, thank you.
Alrighty, and then the third person, I do see 4, so we'll get to the fourth person in a second, or in a few minutes. But going from probably one of the generally more seasoned competitors, we got someone who's probably still a little bit of work to go. But Dane Liccardo, good to see you're running tonight, and good to get a bit of a topsy-turvy season sort of squared away and into the books for the year.
Yeah, for an up and down season, it's good to finish off in the top 5, top 4 actually, in Adelaide. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, a topsy-turvy night as well. DNF in the first race, and probably one of the more unique ways to have it happen. But then obviously turn around in race 2 and bounce it back. How'd your night go?
Well, between having one of the most unluckiest DNFs I think I've ever seen in my 3 years of sim racing, to being put in the fence at the start of the second race, to working the way through the field with Ryan and all of them, it's been quite an interesting night. I only got my sim set up last night after moving house, so I've had very little practice, so I'm very surprised I got P4.
Absolutely. Well, that sort of squares you away for the year as things sit, top 15 in the standings, which, considering that at one point you were having to almost retire from the season, that's a pretty good run in the end. Obviously not quite where you'd like to be, but you can only do so much with what you're given. I understand you're on the move to a new team for next year. Any sort of lead-in you can give us on that?
Yeah. Me and Ryan are teaming up next year. Me and Ryan Smith, so yeah.
All right, so that'll bring Surrey's esports to the grid in a full-time capacity. Obviously, the plan was, I think, to do that this year with Ryan Cox, but things didn't quite pan out the way they wanted to. But yeah, you and Ryan Smith on the grid next year. What's the thoughts coming into that?
Ryan's fast and he's good. He's just been on a very unlucky night. I'm sure if both mine and Ryan's luck improves, probably a long shot, but I reckon we could have a fight with CRE and Pixel next year.
All right, that's a pretty bold claim, but I know the easiest way to get performance out of you is to tell you can't do something, and then you'll do it anyway. So, but I won't do that on a broadcast. So good luck for next year, Dane. Obviously, great work tonight, and good luck next year moving over to SES.
Thank you and also thanks to all the admins for this year. It's been a good year.
Alrighty, and then before we get on to the series sponsors, I've also noticed that we've had Lewis Wedding pop up into the booth. Lewis, perhaps performance-wise, actually pretty good night overall. You definitely did the long way in race one, coming up from pit lane start. Obviously not planned, you were starting 14th, but pretty good return on the night as things sit from your personal level, and perhaps not the season you're looking for, obviously having to stepping out halfway through, but a pretty good end to it at the same time for where things sit for you. I say that, I think he's wandered off. So if he does pop up at any point, I'll pose that question to him again. We'll move on for the moment then.
No, he's back. He's back.
He is back. Alrighty, Lewis, did you hear that question or do I need to go again?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Okay, I'll try to remember what I said. Obviously a bit of a hard start to the night, starting qualifying 14th and starting from the pit lane, but you worked your way up to 6th in race one, and a bit of a topsy-turvy race two, but you backed yourself up there again in race two. Very much a season that hasn't gone the way you would have liked, but it's very much sort of for the last round a good way to wrap things up.
Actually, it probably sums up the year more than anything. Obviously, the first race seems to be a habit of late. I have to excuse myself right before the race start, and end up missing it. But no, I just come into tonight just looking to. Well, as the young'uns would say, I was just vibing here. Here's to just really just pound around, have a bit of fun, and if I could help Luke and Rossi in any way, was to do that. But essentially, I was just here just to have fun. And race one went pretty well. Our race pace was really good. The setup we had was nice. Probably the most comfortable I felt in the car all year. And obviously race two sort of things for quite a while were felt. We're going our way and in our control, and just seems to be the tale of any type of Supercars championship for any team that I'm involved in. It seems where we get caught up in other people's incidents, and so obviously Luke had his run in, and then because his car was pretty much totaled. He was going into turn 8 and I had nowhere to go. Well, I did have somewhere to go. Like, I saw him, I knew it was going off, I saw the smoke, so I slowed up, and then obviously Wayne didn't, and I just went defensive. John Holt got rear-ended and wiped out. So there goes a good result. For a fleeting minute, we saw that there was a track cut for Will, and it was going to go all to plan. Maybe even a fairy tale, 1, 2, 3 for team cars, but wasn't to be. So I guess that sort of summed up the season in a way where we were close, but not quite close enough. Things didn't quite rub our way when we needed to, but look, it was positive. But at the same time, I don't know. I actually feel pretty down after coming into the race. I was happy, regardless of how the championship was going to go. I thought, it'll be all right. If we lose, it'll be, maybe a little bit of bad luck. But the way it happened was just pretty hard. So
yeah,
a bit of a shame. Really happy for Rossi though. I mean, he's deserved to win, outright on his own for a while. Albeit we would have, as he said, he would have liked it in better circumstances, as would anybody. But look, I'm happy for him. He's deserved it with the effort that he's put in the last few years. He's struggled with the changes to the car this year, and to at least come here tonight and be fairly close to Luke compared to other circuits was really positive. So. Hopefully you can sort of take that into next year, but obviously it'll probably be a different car. So the big reset button. Obviously disappointing end to the championship and to the season and to the race. But hopefully, whatever happens next year for myself and the team is a bit better. But yeah, bit sad. But yeah, again, congratulations to obviously Will for finally getting through in the driver's title, and at the moment what looks to be CRE with teams, and it's better tight championship in terms of the teams all throughout. Couldn't quite get it done, but still, they've got the job done. So well done to them, and obviously well done to sort of from an admin point of view, well done to everybody this year for giving it a crack. And I have to say, deliveries again, a lot of deliveries this year were really good. So people have put in a lot of time and effort with all of them. Sometimes it's a bit of a pain to try and add in packs after it seems every week, but no, everybody's presented the league really well with what they've put together, and looking forward to obviously what we can do with obviously Gen 3 most likely coming next year, whether that be an AMS or R Factor 2, I don't know, but either way, looking forward to what people can do with those, and then well done to Steve and yourself for doing the broadcast. It's not easy always. Calling races, there could be blowouts and they could be, some interesting moments that happen that you've got to try and be biased on, and it's not easy, or unbiased on, and you've got to sort of work your way through it. So, and then again as well for Steve for putting together all the packages for the broadcast. I know that takes up a bit of time, particularly early on when you've got to set up the templates for it. So it's a lot of work. Obviously to Foley for doing the drivers briefings and stuff like that, and to all the admins that have done the incidents as well. So big thanks to everybody. Obviously our sponsors as well. We've seen them around the circuit. Obviously Cam Rutledge Electrical and Beyond Electrical. There's been a couple others that they escape me right now. I do apologise, but big thanks to everybody, and we hope to see you all next year.
Absolutely. Well, I see what it's like at the other end of the picture when you guys interview me in Dev Series, because I gave you one question, you answered all the questions I would throw, you got past that. So great work tonight, Lewis, as you mentioned. Probably an indicative night of how you feel the season went. But look, in one way or another, Rossi mentioned that we may or may not see Pix on the grid next year, but we will see you around in some form next year, more than likely. But good work tonight, and great work for the season that you could compete in.
Yeah, thank you. And you will see us at least for the Enduros, but for the other stuff, we don't know. But yeah, anyway, thank you. And catch us on the flip side.
All good. Alrighty, with the drivers out of the way, we will talk to the next two about the performances a little bit, but really they're here more to talk about their involvements as sponsors of the series. So Cam Rutledge and Pete Thrower. I will start with Cam alphabetically, but Cam, you've had Cam Rutledge Electrical involved in the championship for a few years, obviously not been a series sponsor the whole time. You've been obviously involved with the CRE team for a number of years as well, but pretty good year as things have sat for you, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think as the team is, we're going really well. Myself as personally driving this year, I've had an up and down year, not qualifying well, and but I've enjoyed all of my racing. I might not have the results that I want. I definitely want top 10 in the championship every year, but the talent in the community has grown immensely year after year after year. Like I remember first race at Calder, and you're in battle packs of 7 or 8 cars fighting for 12th or something. Like it's insane. But I love supporting the community. The admins put so much time and effort into bringing us all together, and it's all voluntary. And wherever I can try and help to try and cover costs of live timings and tracks and stuff, I always like put him back, because I get a lot of enjoyment out of the racing here with you guys.
Absolutely. Well, I won't, as I've done with everyone else, throw the next year question, because being a driver is one thing, actually contributing your own money directly to things is another matter, and that's obviously something you've got to come up with in your own time. But I will quickly throw to Pete as well. Pete, I know you guys have had a rivalry set up across the season. I think by about round 4 or 5, it was kind of decided one way or the other. If you guys do still want to honour the Sparky Showdown, I've got the points recorded. It's not it's expensive night for the Kiwis, but for yourself at Beyond, and obviously for the Beyond Electrical team, actually, you're both sponsoring the teams you're involved in. Been a pretty good year for you guys as well.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Obviously, Tim spearheads our team. He's crew chief, so he without him tonight, we absolutely capitulated. I think we only had one car finish the race in the race 2. But yeah, big thank you to Tim, because without him, we wouldn't have setups each week, and he really is the driving force behind getting everyone set up each week. I'm just the front, and I'm happy to contribute. I'm happy to contribute to the community, just like Cam. You guys do a great job, and I'd only be spending it on beers anyway, so it's better off that it goes to a good cause.
Fair enough. Well, I will say on behalf of the admin team and on behalf of the Supercars drivers, thanks to the pair of you for your investment in the Supercars season this year. And hopefully we'll see the both of you on the grid as drivers again next year as well.
Absolutely.
No worries. Thank you.
Alrighty, and one quick thing before Nether pinches the mic back off me. I know I've been holding it for the last 20 minutes, but I'll give it back to you in a second. But from my own point of standing, I'd like to thank everybody on the ASR admin team for this year. Higo for the work with the track development, Lewis tapping in with that as well, and a lot of work with getting the livery squared away. Nether with his work on the broadcast, Rossi with his work on track development as well and car development. We haven't seen much of Mike this year, unfortunately, but he's been around when he can be. Foley with his work on the drivers' briefings and the like, and Will for the work he can put in where he can. And crucially, Will and I have did run the first social series of the year. I've been looking after that myself in the second half of the year, but thanks to Will also for putting the servers up for those as well. And now I'm done. So I'll hand back to Nether to end the season.
Thanks very much, Rody. Now, your work this year has been very much appreciated, especially all the driver interviews at season's end, or at night's end rather, because it lets me do a couple of things that need to be done from an admin point of view. But I just want to echo your sentiments and with the words you offered and exchanged with Cam and Pete. Those guys have been a crucial part of our community for the last several seasons. We've been really proud to be sponsors of not just both their businesses, but all the small businesses that have come along over the course of time. Because without small businesses, a lot of the economies in the world just don't function. They are the core of what goes on both sides of the Tasman Sea, New Zealand and in Australia. So we couldn't be prouder to support those guys and any of the other groups that want to come on board. Looking at, I had a message over the weekend as well that might also be another sponsor that's interested in putting some signage out next year as well. So that just sort of goes to illustrate how much value and how much appreciative thoughts go into some of those people that come and race each and every week. So we'll be talking with no doubt with Cam and Pete in the off season, but also some other potential interested parties as well. So it's just good to see that they're continuing to support the series. Before we close up, just a quick look at what the points standings are. And as I did say a few moments ago, all points are currently provisional, with a bunch of stewarding that is more than likely going to have to happen in the coming couple of days. So a reminder to all the Supercars drivers, you have got until 10 p.m. Monday, the 11th of December, to get your stewards reports in via the incident reporting so they can be reviewed. So as it stands right now, provisionally, we talked about this already, even though there probably will be some form of a penalty coming for Will Devenish for his the contact with Luke Rosella. He is still going to be the driver's champion. That can't be taken away from him. There is a late shift in how the drivers' minor placings unfolded. So Brendan Ross up to second. 2,505 points. And then there's a bit of a logjam behind. So depending on how penalties and other things play out, this may yet change. We're not quite sure just yet. Brenton Foley manages to jump to third, 10 points clear of Tim Redmond, who was then 12 points clear of Curtis Egmanis. So there was quite a logjam for the top five there, ahead of Noah Turra. And then Luke Rosella, we said he couldn't go any further higher than seventh, so that's where he has finished, ahead of Locke, Wedding and Peter Thrower. So that was the top 10 as it sits at the end of tonight provisionally. And then we flip over to the team standings, and look, Lewis has pretty much sort of hit the nail on the head. Depending on what the outcome is, at this stage provisionally, it's CRE Engineering on top, 157 points to the good over the Real Holden Pixel Racing team, but still with that issue still to be decided. With Amped Up Racing by CRE third, Beyond Racing fourth, and PBF Race Engineering fifth. So that's how the team's points sat provisionally after tonight's proceedings. Of course, all of that will be confirmed in the Discord over the next week once all that has been said and done. But on behalf of the ASR community, I just want to say thank you to everybody that competed this year, whether you competed one round or whether you competed the full season. We appreciate the fact that everybody made some effort to turn up on a regular basis. Same for all the drivers that came in from the development series and filled in at a wildcard situation or a substitute situation. Those that only competed in Enduro Cup, because this year it was a part of Supercars Championship as well as a big thank you to all the admin team. Thank you to Rhodey for being opposite me for all 13 rounds of the season, and of course a big thank you to you at home for watching. We'll see you in 2024, everybody. Stay safe, have a Merry Christmas, and see you next time. Bye for now.